Welcome into the I-80 Boys inaugural podcast. I'm your host, Christian, and joining me is our other host, Chris. Guys, we're so excited to get this thing started and finally have an opportunity to get this thing together.
You bet, man. How's it going, Christian? What have you been up to, brother? It's been, what, months since the national title game, man? What do you got to say, bro?
Well, I got a lot to say about it. And I understand everybody's gonna say it's been a month, you motherfucker. Why are you just now getting to this? Well, I think
you know why.
Yeah, I've been celebrating for a month. That's why,
And it looks like you have been celebrating for a month.
Yeah, I started off, I was 180 pounds when the season started last year, and I don't know what happened. I don't know, but just been taking too much time off, I guess.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. We've been kind of trying to put this together for a while, and I'm so glad that we're just now kind of getting around to putting this podcast together. I mean, it's really, for me, it's an exciting thing to do. We kind of did a little bit of this last year, some different platforms, some different shows, and we just we didn't really like where we were at with it. We kind of said, hey, we want to kind of be able to do our own thing and kind of be more of ourselves and just be able to say, fuck this and that's bullshit and, all that kind of stuff and have a few drinks and just really be able to kind of talk about football freely. And so we kind of put our heads together collectively. I think we rebranded some stuff and we're looking to make a little bit of a difference here. So, but yeah, Chris, I'll kind of turn it back over to you for just a second. And yeah.
Yeah, no, like I said, Chris, you nailed it. Like I said, like this is something I've kind of wanted to do. I know you have too, and like speak a little more freely. And just talk. I mean, off the cuff. You know what I mean? Just talk about sports, especially football here, and just go with the college game and talk about it and see where it goes. But yeah, no, I'm excited, man. I'm glad to see you, dude. I'm surprised you're still alive after this Georgia victory. If I'm gonna have to, make a couple bets with you, I think, during this podcast and see if you can hold up to it. I mean, you've been swinging around pretty heavy lately, man, from what I understand. So we'll see where it goes, man. See.
Yeah, the hardest hitting individual on Georgia's defense would probably have been my liver if it was still eligible to play. But yeah, so let's get this thing started off right. Let's do it. And how we want to start it, guys, is we want to have a moment of silence for the Texas Christian University Horned Frogs. Let's just make sure we have a moment of silence here. All right, there we go. So, yeah, now we can move on to the next and kind of more important topic here, Chris. I want to throw this over to you here. Do you think Georgia's second string could have beaten TCU?
You know what, man, and like I said, I think that I've watched 30 years worth of title games, and I'm not stretching this. I like to think I know quite a bit about football, but like as bad as that title game was, is like, and I'm not a Georgia hater. I'm not necessarily a big time Georgia fan. I'm not from there, but as a college football fan, it just, the sheer dominance, and I hate to say this because I know it strokes your ego. Georgia portrayed in a back-to-back, this wasn't their first national title. This is going off a back-to-back, which is really hard to do in college football, as anybody that knows. I think their second string, I don't know who's all on that second string, but I do know that those guys can play. I mean, Georgia is it's going to sound cliche, but man, they look like, and I don't want to use the word Alabama because I hate them, but I mean, like, they look, I shouldn't say hate, but not a fan. Like they look like the new type of Alabama, man. They got depth. They look like the 90s Huskers where your second, third string guys can play at an ultra high level. And nothing against TCU. And I'm not hating on them, but man, TCU all year was kind of that Cinderella story. Max Duggan, hell of a freaking football player, by the way. That guy's a winner. I mean, I love that kid, but like every other area in that game, Georgia dominated. I mean, you don't get beat the way they got beat without sheer domination. I mean, did they punt once? I mean, I don't even remember at this point. Like, I think Georgia punted. Did they punt once?
I think it was, they punted like maybe once, twice. I don't know. arm punts for sure. If you count like maybe an interception here or there, I think that might have been
right
close to it.
So yeah, overall, just to cap it off with my thoughts on this, like I'm not trying to get into second string, but like, damn, dude, it would have been a better game. I mean, as a fan, you know what I mean? As a fan that's not rooting for either team, it was just like, wow, like it was. I mean, I damn near wanted to turn it off at halftime. I was like, holy cow, Georgia is just that. And I'll be honest with you, my thoughts before the season started, nobody has this down, but I thought Georgia was going to win a national title again this year. I thought that team was coming back with a lot of talent after the year before, and they proved it. Stenson Bennett, damn, dude. I could have gave him the Heisman, dude, by the way. I could have.
Yeah, and he's only a year younger than I am, and I'm 27, so that just goes to show you, if you stay in college, I think for 8 years and you don't have a doctorate degree, well, by God, you can be a 2-time national championship quarterback or Van Wilder, one of the other you pick. I think you're right to say that we're coming up on Alabama levels of dominance. We're sort of creeping back up that level. I think you're right. Big difference. Alabama, they marry their sisters. In Georgia, they marry their cousins. There's a huge difference between the two, right? One's extended family, the other's a little bit closer.
Yeah, you're still flirting a little bit with that line, though.
Yeah, there's a little bit of some gene splice in there for sure. Here's kind of, like you said, I got to thinking about this, coming out of that game. One of the things I realized was I think Georgia's second string would have still, I don't know if they would have dominated, but I think they definitely could have beat them. Because you watched them. There was true freshmen that were getting in that game, defensive linemen that were getting after that quarterback and still sacking him. They really still were struggling to move the ball. With Duggan in there, even on the second team, the second string offense, for Georgia. One of our true freshman running backs who, by the way, if you guys haven't seen this guy yet, he became a meme because I think like they put a picture of him up and he looked like Nick Chubb. In the NFL right now as a senior in high school. He looked like a grown man out there. But anyways, he scored like 2 touchdowns. Branson Robinson's his name. He had 50 yards, 2 touchdowns in that game against him. They just couldn't stop him. And I think, that really brings up a good question that I think you were saying. It's kind of a, can Georgia continue that success? Can they continue sort of capitalizing off of what they're doing? I think they'll be all right, but I think as a Georgia fan, and kind of like you said too, Chris, as a Nebraska fan, you have to live in the moment. Sometimes we get so wrapped up in chasing that next title or chasing that next great season that we lose sight of a lot of things. And I think that you have to realize, hey, first and foremost, I was good at one, because we hadn't won one in 41 years. This next one, it's kind of like awesome, next year, we'll get into it, later on in the show. We've got some record predictions for what I think Georgia and Nebraska will do this year. But I think we might be seeing a little bit of switch watching here. So with that being said, let's kind of get into what went right for Georgia this year. What went right and what went wrong? Well, obviously not a whole hell of a lot went wrong for them, other than they lost a shit ton of players. Once again to the draft, they lost, our offensive coordinator. And yeah, that's pretty much, in my opinion, what went wrong. I think what went right was just about everything else. It's just going to be, it's kind of hard to really say, it's really hard to say, hey, what went right when you won a national championship, and I'm not saying that to rub it in, obviously, but it's just, it's really, really hard for my opinion to kind of go much further than that. Chris, I'll turn it back over to you to get your take on it.
Like I said, everybody has biased opinions, everybody, I don't care. Any fan of college football has a team, right? So like we all sit in different regions, different parts of the country, right? And we have our own opinions on, and we all root for our favorite teams, right? But being an outsider from Georgia, the SEC, what went right for Georgia? You got Stenson Bennett. You had a lot of kids back from that national title team from last year, the year before, right? That is huge. I watched it in Nebraska in the 90s, having that camaraderie, guys that step in and fill in, guys that rotate in and out. I don't care about your stars, whether you're a 5-star, 4-star, 2-star. I don't give a shit. But like, just Georgia to me, that's what I said. I wish I would have wrote this down on a piece of paper and signed and dated it, my prediction last year was like, I think Georgia is literally going to repeat. I just truly believed in, you guys had so many pieces back. And I think that's a big thing, right? I watched it in the 90s, not to bring up Nebraska, but won 3 out of 4. We had guys in the national title game, exactly what kind of happened with Georgia and TCU this year, or the year before with Bama. You guys pulled that crazy victory out. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, God, like they don't really lose much in camaraderie off that team. And bringing, I mean, anybody that follows sports know if you got guys behind guys that play and the experience level goes a long ways, especially in tight games, knowing what to do. And we could get all into the details of, how football is played, but having that experience is just huge. You know what I mean? Especially like I could talk about basketball right now and go down that road, especially college basketball, but it's pretty much one and done. But I guess to answer the question on the other side, what went wrong for Georgia? That's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum when I'm talking about. They're going to lose a lot of people off this team. You know what I mean? The draft is coming up here. They got a lot of guys that can play, but like you brought up about their running back, 2 touchdowns, 50. That kid looked like that kid's a starter anywhere else. I mean, and we will get, I won't, dive into this right now because you said we're going to talk about it, and we will, where Georgia's going to be next year, and I know we like to get, everybody wants to get, Georgia's going to win 5 out of 7, like I'm not going down that road, but man, Georgia has established something, and I am super happy for them being a anti kind of Bama guy. And I would love to see somebody else kind of take that step over Clemson and over Bama the last couple of years, kind of being that dominant football team. And it makes it more interesting as a fan that doesn't have a team in those playoffs, right? Nebraska, we wouldn't go down that route right now, but you know what I mean? Like as a true fan of college football, man, it's kind of nice to see Georgia come in and step in. And I am a big Kirby Smart fan. I think he's a hell of a coach. And I don't think you guys have to worry about him going anywhere, by the way. I'll turn it over to you, Christian.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right there. I mean, it's Kirby. I think in the first couple of years when he started getting Georgia back and they started kind of pushing back for playoff spots and getting more relevance there. I mean, the NFL had looked at him, and I think he might have flirted with it a little bit.
He did,
but he just ultimately said, "Hey, this is where I want to be," and I think that's. I really think he's going to stay at Georgia. At least for the next couple of years. I mean, I think. We're getting ready to kind of see, Georgia's kind of crescendoing, and this kind of bleeds into, I think, the first thing we'll kind of cover Georgia here, and then we'll jump into Nebraska coverage. What do I expect, from Georgia this year? I honestly think Georgia is going to, and it hurts my heart to say it, it does. I think we're in for a little bit of a regression. You don't lose massive pieces from your roster, whether it be to the draft, whether it be to the transfer portal, and sort of keep moving, I mean, especially not when you have to change, have a change in quarterback. I went back and did a little bit of investigative, journalism, if you will. I don't want to say that, but I looked back at it, and how many times in the college football playoff era, okay, in this new playoff era that, a first year starting quarterback, whether it be a true freshman or someone who's just been sitting around waiting, has actually made it to a championship game that I can think of. I think there's been 3 times that's happened, and that's Trevor Lawrence, at Clemson.
Yep. Behind Deshaun Watson. Yep.
Mac Jones at Alabama. When he sat behind Jalen Hurts and Tua.
Yeah, that don't get much better than that.
And then I think it was the first year when Ohio State won it, when it was J.T. Barrett and Cardell Jones, if I'm not mistaken. I think both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Woo. Both of them were kind of there. If I'm not mistaken.
You're right. Nope, you're exactly right. I think on that.
But other than that, I can't remember. There's probably other times, but it's not. I don't think it's a very common thing for when you lose your a very experienced quarterback who's won a championship for you, and then you gotta kind of take back over and retool. That's a whole different thing. And when you look at Georgia's schedule and what they've got coming up, it's not that difficult, but it's not difficult at all. I'd say it's an easy schedule compared to the rest of their team. Unless you don't have a guy at the quarterback position who struggles.
Christian, not to jump in on and interrupt. What's the most important position on the football field?
Well, 100%. It's quarterback.
Right. And I could parlay off this, and not to interrupt where you're going with this. And I can bring up, you're talking about Georgia, right? And I can talk about Nebraska in the 90s when I was a kid. We had won a national title in 94, 95, and 97, right? We didn't win one in 96. We all know why that was. That was Scott Frost's first year being a starting quarterback, right? Brought some people back off that 95 dominant 95, arguably one of the greatest teams ever in college football. But we had Tommy in 94 and 95, right? Get that new quarterback, man. Most important position. Schedule wasn't I wouldn't say overly tough in 96. I could go down the list, but we lost 2 games that year. We lost to, I think it was Arizona State and Jake Plummer week 2. And then we lost, I think we lost 9-3. It was a crazy low scoring game. Safety, some shit wasn't happening in that game. But then we lost to Texas in the Big Ten title game. A lot of that was quarterback play though. Turnovers from the quarterback. You know what I mean? Because you just brought it up. It's kind of funny. You just kind of parlayed right into where I was going with that. I'm like, new quarterback's going to make it tough. You know what I mean? Even if you got all the other pieces around, a quarterback position is tough if you don't have a guy in there that has played at that level, especially Georgia's playing at a freaking high level. Let's be honest. Let alone the pressure, bro. I mean, when's the last team anybody's ever won 3 in a row in college football? I don't even know if has that been done? Bama didn't do it. They were close.
Was it? Yeah, I think Bama, they like you said, I mean, Bama did back-to-back a couple times.
Yes.
Was it Nebraska? Did Nebraska do it?
No. 70 and 71, I believe it was. And I think it was in 94, 95, and then 97. We did not win. We went 3 out of 4 like Bama's done.
Gotcha.
I don't think anybody's ever won 3 in a row, dude. That's the historical three-peat, Michael Jordan Bulls type of shit. That is so unheard of. And don't quote me on that. I could go pull some stats, I guess, if I have to on that in college football. But I don't think anybody's done that. That's the ultimate thing, right? That's your ultimate dynasty right there.
Yeah, I mean and even if somebody has done it, let's just go ahead and clarify this. Even if somebody has done it, at least if you tie that kind of greatness, well, I mean that's got to be that's got to count for something, right? I mean, yeah, to win one really difficult, especially in this landscape when you look at the modern dynasty that is Alabama, and the monopoly that a lot of these teams like Clemson in the ACC, Ohio State. Although Ohio State's kind of regressing a little bit, you know what I mean? Michigan's kind of starting to kind of come up there. But yeah, I think it's pretty tough to go win 3 of them back to back. It's like you said, for me, I look at it and I recall a game when we had Jake Fromm in at quarterback. And what was funny to me was Jake Fromm, if you look at his career when he was at Georgia, started off, and I mean, he did fantastic. Fantastic when he was taking over for, Jacob Eason, I think it was.
Yep.
Yeah. He threw that dime over at Notre Dame. Was that? I think that was him that threw that ball at Notre Dame as a true freshman, led us all the way to the national championship, didn't give the game back. And then after that, it just kind of Fields came in and everything started kind of regressing. I remember the reason why I say all that was because, when they played Kentucky a few years back, they were at Kentucky. It was a night game. In the rain, I don't think he had more than 100 yards passing in that game. I mean, Georgia beat Kentucky by a couple of touchdowns, just running the football down their throat, which is almost, in the SEC, that's almost unheard of. I mean, that's like Alabama style of dominance, in the mid 2000s there, Derrick Henry, so
those guys,
yeah, I mean that's just ridiculous. However, I think in today's game, and I think what Todd Monken kind of brought to the table for Georgia, is you got to open it up. I mean, Georgia's ground game this year has not been what it's been in years past, and I think last year too the ground game wasn't as dominant, but they were still able to just, do what they wanted. And they since they've started opening the passing game up and they've started getting, I'll say this. I think Georgia's quickly turning into tight end university over there. I mean, some of these guys are just, they're just athletes, and you guys are going to benefit from one of those guys too. We'll kind of talk about that guy, old Eric Gilbert, more and more as we kind of go on with the show, but
we are,
man, I think the reality of it, kind of what I expect from Georgia this year, is I think the quarterback position is going to be the most important part of this. I think that, ultimately, I think Carson Beck will win the job. And you look at Georgia's roster, he's actually, of the three guys that may be in the mix for this, he's actually kind of, if I'm not mistaken, he's the lowest rated guy from a recruiting standpoint. There was Brock Vandergriff, who was a 5-star quarterback who committed to Oklahoma, one of the better quarterbacks of his class. He wasn't the best, but he was up there. Then there was Gunnar Stockton, who was a 4-star, kind of fringe 5-star guy, depending on what recruiting service you look at. He played straight up man football down there, in the state of Georgia. He's a great athlete. He kind of is that Stetson Bennett mold where he kind of replicates, running quarterback. He's the best running quarterback that there is. He's kind of a physical kind of guy where he can run the ball a little bit.
Okay.
And then, there's Carson Beck, he's a 4-star guy, out of Florida, but he's not, when you look at him from the rest of them, he's not there. But I think, probably the one thing that he has is he's been at this level for a while. And, I've seen what he can do in the spring, in some of the spring games. And I know some of the keyboard warriors in the comment section down there are going to say spring games don't matter. Well, you know what? Just like you said, you wrote down on paper last year what you thought Georgia was going to do.
Sure did.
I said it last year. Now watch Nebraska spring game, and I said they're going to get that ass handed to them, because they weren't tackling. But listen, I'm not here to hate on Nebraska. I'm not here to be that guy.
Of course.
I think it's a reality of, when you look at what they're able to do in the spring game, especially when you're playing a team like Georgia and you're playing 2 or 3 deep, 2 or 3 strings deep of great talent, you got to take that, and that's got to mean something. And I think Carson Beck will end up being the guy, but does he have an off game? Mike Bobo, and we talked about Todd Monken leaving for Baltimore to go become their offensive coordinator.
Big, man. That's big shoes to fill, dude.
That is, Bobo was at Auburn, back in 2021. I think he got let go. Gosh, now I'm slipping. Yeah, I think he got let go because they regressed a lot that year.
Yes, they did. That's what.
And pretty much Bobo came back. He's kind of been sliding a little bit, and I think even towards the end of Bobo left, I think, to go take the Colorado State job. Way back. After his first stint at Georgia. But, here's kind of what I think, Chris. I think, to kind of make a long story short of it, they got to get whoever's playing quarterback right. And they got to make sure that, hey, that defense kind of looked a little bit suspect in a couple of those games last year.
They did. Missouri being one of them. I was a little worried about, if you want to throw that out there. Not to come on top of you on this, but just to answer a couple of those questions, there's only 2 teams ever three-peat. That's Yale in the 1800s, and I think it was Minnesota I saw in 1930 something. You know what I mean? So that's not even modern era. So there's been about 4 or 5 teams that ever won 3 out of 4. Nebraska being one of them. Bama a couple times. That's a tough task to not to backtrack, but just to get our knowledge or info right on that. That's crazy, dude. Like, you guys have a shot to do this. You know what I mean? You even put yourself in a shot to even try to win 3 in a row, which is, to me, is just unthinkable in today's modern era. But I'm with you, man. Overall, Christian, what to answer your question, what to expect this year from Georgia? I think you guys are going to be the schedule, in my opinion, what I would call PUD. It pretty much is as far as teams, but we all know how the SEC is, dude. There are teams that Tennessee last year. I'm a big Hendon Hooker fan, man. I know he's gone now. Love that kid. I thought Tennessee was I was really watching him every single Saturday they were on. If they were on around here, man, I would always tune in to watch those guys play. I thought that team had a lot of moxie about them. They didn't play a lot of defense, but boy, they could put up some points, right? And they came down to Georgia and they just got their asses kicked in that game. But not a bad football team. They came off a lot of big wins though before you guys. That Bama game was a monster one. I believe they beat Kentucky before that too, as well in that stretch. But you guys this year, you said it 100% correct. And as I mentioned earlier, the quarterback position, who you guys put in there, I don't know as much about the Georgia quarterbacks, obviously, as you do coming in. You guys, I think, still have enough talent around you guys to make a playoff. And I mean, you make the playoff, you got a shot, right? I mean, this is how this works. I think you guys are going to be there. I think you guys are going to be right in that mix of teams that you guys might have one loss coming in. I had your guys' schedule up earlier. I guess I can't remember everybody on there, but like Tennessee, I think is going to be tough. I think they're pretty pissed off after what happened last year. I think me and you might have some different views on Bama this year. I think Bama's going to be the Bama that we've always seen with Nick Saban. I think he's going to probably make a playoff personally. That's me. There's usually 2 SEC teams in that freaking playoff though. So I could see Georgia being one of them. Don't get me wrong. But what do I expect as an outsider? Not as, balls deep in it as you are with Georgia, but I seriously think that I think Georgia's going to be damn good, regardless who they put there at quarterback, unless you guys put some total scrub back there. And I don't think Kirby Smart's a scrub as a coach. So I think he's going to put the right guy back there to give you guys the best chance to win football games. And I think you guys are going to win some freaking football games. Do you guys three-peat? Going against history, Jesus, man, like you'd say no, right? But I think you guys have a legitimate shot to put yourself in a position to maybe have a chance. And that's, to me, that's all you can ask, right? There's a lot of football to be played from now up until the end of the 2023 season. So,
yeah, I think from a probability standpoint, I think Yale has a better shot at winning a national championship this year than Georgia does at three-peating. Call me crazy. And you know what? Okay. I don't give a shit. Because look, at the end of the day, I mean, obviously Yale's probably not going to win the national championship this year. But no. I, as a Georgia fan, I don't think we do it again this year. Now, could we do it? Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, realistically, Georgia does have a much.
Okay. I'm going to, since this is being recorded.
Yeah.
What do you think your shot is if you guys make the playoffs and it's the Final Four? And then do you still think Yale's got a shot, or where are you at then, Christian? Where you at, buddy?
If Yale's in a play-in with Georgia, or if
no. If you guys are right now, you're saying like Yale's got a better shot. What happens with Georgia? We're speaking how many months from now, and we're talking about the playoff, bro. And we need like some sort of bet here going on. If I make this right, and Georgia's in that playoff, and what's your chances then? You're thinking of Georgia. Man, they might, they're 11-0, and they're looking really good right now, and they have a chance to win that whole goddamn thing. What do I got to make you do? You take your shirt off on podcast for a couple hours, or do the old trumpet shuffle, or wait, what do we do?
I'll Bert Kreischer it over here, Brent Crystals. I would just say, hey, let's bet let's just do that, right? We'll do that. Okay. If you're saying if Georgia makes it to the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, I got sorry, I didn't phrase that correctly. Well, first question first. If Georgia makes the playoffs next year and they're in the playoff, right? Let's say they're 10-1 or 11-0 or whatever the hell they are. What are their chances then, you think? I mean, we don't know the future, obviously, but you said Yale had a better shot of three-peating. If Georgia's in the Final Four, they got a lot better shot than Yale does, because Yale ain't making the Final Four, Christian. I don't know what planet you're on if you're thinking that, but come on, man. Are you thinking a little differently than like, damn, this might actually happen?
No, I meant simply put, Yale has a better shot at somehow making it to the playoff this year and potentially winning a national championship than I think Georgia would statistically have at three-peating.
Okay.
Losing.
Okay. I just want to make sure I got this right up here. I am from Nebraska. We're a little slow, but I just want to make sure.
I think that the chances if Georgia makes it, to the playoff, which very well could happen. That could be a realistic possibility this year. I think the chances they have at winning another championship, I would say pretty good. It depends on who they're going to be playing, though. That's the reality of it.
Right.
If you get a situation where this year you get, I don't know, like, I haven't really sat down and really done the research into it, but let's just say, hypothetically speaking, you have somebody like another TCU that comes into that equation. There's going to be some
team out there this year that'll surprise the shit out of everybody, dude. I don't know if they make the playoffs, but we'll have a team that's like 12-0 or 12-1 out of one of the. Let's say it's USC, and they're probably not a surprise. Let's bring them up for, you know what I mean? Caleb Williams back, reigning Heisman Trophy winner. You got what's his bucket, Lincoln Riley or whatever, as their head coach. They're going to be good. That team is loaded, and they play in I'm going to say the word pussy conference, in my opinion, probably piss some people off, but there's, you know what I mean? There's a team that's like, haven't probably played a tough schedule, not to interrupt you on this, but like, you know what I mean? Like they're one of those surprise teams. Well, haven't really played anybody yet, but they might be crazy good, right? And they get the playoffs and got to play a Big 10 team or a Big 12 team or a Big 10 team or an SEC team or somebody that's really hot, right? Like, that's a team to me. I know it's USC and that's a big name, but they haven't been real, in my opinion, relevant for quite a while. And I don't want to say that, but like it's been a while.
Yeah, I think, and that's something we'll probably devote a whole show on. I think my thing with USC is this. I mean, you know, it's kind of the Lincoln Riley curse, is what it is. I mean, it's what plagued Oklahoma. It's
Yeah,
they if they make it to the big game, they get boat raced because they didn't play
I
anybody.
agree.
They get boat raced. I mean, every time he comes in, I mean, they've gotten just demolished when they played LSU. Gosh, now it's escaping me.
LSU, they've got
Bama.
their asses kicked by who was the when they had Kyler Murray.
Was it Clemson? Was that who played him?
Yeah. I think yeah. One of those years with Deshaun Watson, and those guys, or whether it was Trevor Lawrence, I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, you know what I mean. Like you're right. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole with USC. That's just one of those teams next year. I think that's going to be out there that probably runs the table in their conference, and then they're in automatically, and then I can't judge them on like, well, shit, who have you really played? I guess I'm a big anti Pac-12 to me personally. Is just not a tough conference. I just don't believe that. That's just me, and anybody can hate on me about that, but you know what I mean?
Well,
like you got teams like the SEC and the Big Ten that I feel are way more physical teams, and you want to beat the shit out of a Pac-12 team, just be physical with them. I mean, it's shown in recent history. I could talk about Cam Newton beating the shit out of Marcus Mariota, and I know he didn't play defense, but Oregon, in that national title game, how many years ago? Dude, it was, you know what I mean? That was Scott Frost was on that staff. So like,
well, the great thing is too, Chris, is we're talking Pac-12 football. It's not Pac-12 football for much longer with USC. I mean, they're coming over to your division.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it could be, and I don't know. They may be like Texas A&M, where they're going to come over to the Big Ten, and they might kind of struggle for a couple years, and it's not necessarily that they lose games that they shouldn't be losing. It's just they're going to try to get. I mean, look at what happened when Nebraska, moved over to the Big Ten. They did all right. They did pretty good, but then they really started to kind of get behind a little bit.
And we can get into that, and I can speak on that later about why Nebraska has failed in the Big Ten. I don't think that's more brand of football more than it was coaching at that time when we kind of switched over and kind of we'll get into that, Christian, but you're exactly right though. You're exactly right.
To answer the original question that you'd thrown out to me, if Georgia makes it to the playoff, I think it just depends. I mean, it depends who they're playing. I would imagine it's going to be a combination of maybe, I think it's going to be between Michigan and Ohio State. I think they'll probably be good this year. It'll probably be maybe Clemson will probably be up there. I don't know. Florida State might be up there this year. I mean, there's a lot of schools that could be in there. Bama, I'm not as high on Bama this year as you are, only because Bama is losing a massive amount of players. Now they're bringing in a number one recruiting class right behind it, but they lost a lot of players to the NFL, and they're losing a lot more to the transfer portal. So, I mean, it's just kind of like, they retool, but, is this kind of another rebuilding year, which would kind of be almost new territory for Nick Saban, Getting back to it, I think Georgia has a good shot if they make it to the playoffs. I think with that, I'll kind of transition this into,
let's go.
And we'll wrap up, my whole Georgia rant here. But my record prediction for Georgia this year is 9-3. I think they're going to have losses to South Carolina, Tennessee, and Ole Miss. Call me crazy. I think the South Carolina game, you look at Mike Bobo, with his tenure at Georgia, and when they play USC, that's always been a trap game for him, when Bobo's been the coordinator. I think South Carolina with Shane Beamer, they're going in the right direction. They've got a quarterback, and they've got some players that can do some stuff. This might be kind of the year that and I told you this, before we ever got on the show, but when I'm betting this, I'm going to bet South Carolina to win that game. Man, I think it's.
I know, and you're going to laugh at me, bro, but I am an anti. And I can cuss now. I'm an anti fucking Spencer Rattler guy, man. Like, do I think the kid's talented? Yeah, and I know he's not the whole South Carolina team. Don't get me wrong. And I think that team played very well last season at the end of the year. They did. They blew out Tennessee. They did. But I just can't get behind that. I think you guys beat them. The Tennessee game is the one where I think that could be your loss. I do. Ole Miss is also another one. So I would, not to interject you, completely interrupted you on that topic, but I think Georgia goes at least 10-2. That's me. So we're close. We're close. I could see 7-1, 10-2. Personally.
We're pretty close there. I mean, but looking at the rest of their schedule, I mean, they play UT Martin, Ball State, UAB. I mean, they're playing Auburn, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Florida, Missouri, and Georgia Tech, other than the teams we just mentioned. And I don't know. I mean, there could be some trap games in there. I mean, it is the SEC. You never really know. I think I think Florida's got a lot of work to do. Kentucky's losing Will Levis, who's obviously one of their best players. Auburn's got Hugh Freeze, who, don't get me wrong, I think Hugh Freeze will do really well. He needs a couple years to kind of get Auburn back to where they're going to be relevant again.
Yep.
I agree. And everybody else we just mentioned, I don't think so. I mean, I don't see it. I don't really see it from that standpoint. So with that, let's kind of transition into, your favorite topic, one that's near and dear to our heart, Nebraska. What went right and what went wrong for Nebraska last year?
Can we start a separate podcast on just what went wrong? Here, I'm going to start this off. What went right? Actually, you know what? I'm going to start with what went wrong. I'm going to go the opposite direction here off the rip. Like, what went wrong? We talked a little bit about it. Coaching. There was a problem before, and I'm speaking specifically to last season, 2022. It was a total disaster. And I found this out. Now, I am from Nebraska. I was recruited by Nebraska in high school. I know a lot of people have come through there and played against guys that played through there. People that were currently on the roster last year, as so do you, Christian. A lot of dysfunction from Scott, the OC, defensive coordinator. And I'm not putting it all on that. Players didn't also perform either. I know a lot of that is coaching, but a lot of issues last year for Nebraska. Coaching changed, week 4? You bring, it was week 4, week 5. I went to the Oklahoma game when Mickey, I think it was week 4, I think. Was it week 4? 3, maybe. We lost to Northwestern. Georgia, did we won a game and then we played Georgia Southern? It was Oklahoma, right? Is that because I was at the Oklahoma game where Mickey was his first game coming in as an intern.
Yeah.
Interim. I'm a big Mickey Joseph fan as far as coaching goes. I was at that game. That was a crazy, crazy atmosphere, dude. I've been to a lot of Nebraska games. I was there when Tom was there. I've been there since Pelini, all those guys. That was nuts, man. And I thought the team bought in, and we got our asses kicked by Oklahoma. And Oklahoma literally did nothing after they beat us, by the way. But I thought Nebraska improved every week, which is, I think, as any college football fan or anybody that's been around the freaking game, honestly, you want to get better from the start of the year to the end of the year, right? You want to be playing your best football at the end of the year. Nebraska was playing their best football at the end of the year. Wasn't always pretty. It wasn't always great. I'm a Nebraska fan. I hate Iowa. Probably piss some people off in the comments section here, but Nebraska played a great game. They fought hard with what Nebraska had as far as all the up and downs those players had to go through. And it wasn't just last year. It's been turmoil for the last 4. I could speak on that forever, but they did a good job. I was proud of Nebraska when they won that Iowa game. Did we, I didn't act like we won a national title, no, but I was happy for the kids more than anything. Even the fan base needed something. Hey, we won a close game. And I think anybody that's even watching this podcast that even knows anything about Nebraska knows that, holy shit, you guys had that year, last year where you guys are playing against Michigan State, who's rated top 10. Michigan, you guys all play everybody to the end of the wire, and we somehow find a way to shoot ourselves in the foot, right? I mean, it was every game that year. I think we had 3 wins, but we were probably the best 3-win team that ever stepped foot on a football field. So not to deep dive into that crap, but there was a lot of things that went wrong. I thought not all players performed the way they should have. But I also blame most of that on the turmoil and chaos within the Nebraska culture. And I could speak a lot about that and what names and all that if I had to go that deep, but I'm not going to do that here. But it was bad, man. I mean, I think anybody that follows Nebraska knew that last year, holy cow, man, this is a lot worse than some people expected. Even me being very close to the program was wow. Overall though, what went right? Matt Rule comes in, and we spoke on this a little bit, Christian. I am, me personally, and if I'm wrong on this, and I'm starting to, how do I want to word this? Like where I've kind of started to lean more towards Matt Rule and feel better about the situation on that hire. And we could probably talk about this for a while about who Nebraska should have hired, but they've hired him. I wasn't the biggest advocate personally, and I'm not a big name in college sports, obviously, but personally, I was like, man, I thought there were a couple other guys out there that I thought maybe deserved a chance. I don't know how those interviews went. Obviously, I'm not in those decisions, but I thought, hey, this guy, though, I will say, has kind of turned my mindset on him is what he's done in recruiting, dude. I think we finished, 24th or 23rd. After losing a ton of, we lost a lot of players when, Scott and Mickey and everybody, the whole ordeal went down at the end of the year. He's done a great job, man. I do like the way he talks. I know he's not from Nebraska. I believe was at Penn State's probably, I think it's actually said his childhood team or whatever, which is fine. I know his history at Baylor. He had, 9-3 or 11-3 season. Yeah, not bad. He was only there for a few years, though. I think he was at Temple or whatever, or before that. Watched him coach at Carolina. He's still getting paid by the Panthers. Walked into a tough spot there, if anybody wants to go NFL on me here, but done a good job. So what went right? I think they got a good guy there, man. I think this guy does care. I think he's one of those guys, I will say. He means what he says. I don't think he's here to bullshit the Nebraska fan base. I do think he wants to win. What I do love about him, he wants to go back to and you could say this and not mean it, but go back to an old school style of football game, as in run the ball first, versus what we've had in the past. Scott was a very RPO spread style, high paced offensive type of guy. I could get into my whole thoughts on what I think the Big Ten is, but that shit don't work in the Big Ten. Great defenses, smash mouth football, ball control wins in the Big Ten. Let's be honest. This is a different conference than it is the SEC or the ACC or the, God forbid, the Pac-12 and the Big 12, right? There's no defenses in those conferences. So that's where, anyway, so what went right there for Nebraska end of the year? They do have some players back, by the way. Grant's coming back. What's his name? Casey Thompson at quarterback, I think he's got some, he came from Texas, played a year, last year. And I was very impressed with him at times. There were also times where I thought, God damn, man, like sometimes he looked like he was a rookie out there, but then also I got to look at our offensive line, and I'm a big advocate of offensive defensive line is where you win games. Nebraska's offensive line freaking sucked last year. So I'm not putting all the blame on him, but we do have some pieces back. Matt Rule, if he can improve the offensive line and especially the defensive line against the pass rush, and I think we could talk about that later, but Nebraska's, I think, is trending, man. I just thought it was very impressive what they did with Matt Rule, who I'm not the biggest fan of yet, but has turned my head a little bit, like what he's doing as far as recruiting goes. And that's really all we can judge him on and what he says right now. So I obviously we haven't seen Nebraska perform yet, but I do think they're headed in the right direction with that hire. And I will admit that I was wrong, because when I first heard his name, I'm like, no, I don't want that guy. So I will personally stand up and say that, hey, you know what? And you kind of were a guy that brought me to that too. We've talked about this before in the past, but anyway, I'll turn it over to you, not to go off here. So go ahead, Christian.
Preach, I mean, yeah, I think, what went wrong for him, it started well into the offseason. I kind of alluded to it. I think it was a lot to do with their scheme that they started off running, and just the lack of not really tackling and making that physicality known very early on. That showed, and I think that was ultimately what led to Scott Frost getting fired. I think the signs were there. You could tell, and I think in college football, Chris, you can always tell how good a coach is going to be probably at the end of year 3. You get a guy in year 5 and you're struggling to have winning seasons, you probably need to move on. Let me tell you what this is like. This is like dating that really attractive girl, okay, or really attractive guy, depending, it doesn't really matter. It's like dating that really attractive person that's very, very promiscuous, but you're like, oh, I like that. And then they cheat on you. And then you're like, oh, I don't like that. You know what I mean? And you get your heart broken, right. And then you start to realize, I probably shouldn't do that, right? So then you work on yourself, you get better, you start to say, okay, you know what? instead of kind of going for that sort of individual, I'm going to look to maybe go with someone that's a little more laid back, a little more modest, and I'm going to really take my time. And I think that's kind of what they did. You look at, Matt Rule, and I'll just kind of get into this, and I'll kind of go back to what I think went right for him. I mean, Matt Rule, I like Matt Rule. I think there's some things that, as a coach, he's 47 and 43, so he's kind of a slightly above 500 as a coach at the college level. Not going to go to the NFL. NFL is a whole different thing, But I think, he's going to have to figure out this league. He's going to have to figure out the team he's got. And speaking of the team that he's got, I think what went right for Nebraska last year was their offense. Their offense made some strides forward. I think that from an offensive standpoint, Casey Thompson showed a lot of flash. So did Anthony Grant.
Trey Palmer,
Trey Palmer. I mean, they're going to have to figure out a way and to replace, that production that Trey Palmer had. They've got some good pieces, and they've got some stuff coming in, as far as, what I think ultimately led to their demise was just, we've talked about this before, and I've kind of got a chance. I covered Nebraska a lot last year. I think what ultimately went wrong for him was it was all, I think Scott Frost, when he was down at UCF, he had to recruit for the schemes that he wanted to run down there. He couldn't just go and get the best talent he wanted. So he had to go out and get, the best players that fit that scheme. I think when he got to Nebraska, that leash was, was a lot longer. So he could go out and he probably just said, hey, I want to go get the best talent, not necessarily the best talent that fits what I want to do.
Yeah.
So you go out and you get a left tackle that's really good at run blocking, coupled with a right guard that's really good at pass blocking. And so then, you get your blindside tackle get beat on pass protection, you know what I mean? And it just doesn't sync up. I think that, to me, when you look at it, was part of the stuff that kind of happened there. And look, we've talked about it ad nauseum, and I also think that really you don't have to have the best coach out there. I think you just have to have somebody that's a little bit more mature, a little more stable, in the backdrop of things. And I think, you do that and you start to add in the physicality very early on. You get sort of the right scheme to kind of run with the players that you have. And you can use that sort of, that overview of what you're looking at. And
right.
I think Nebraska can really do a complete 180 this year.
Right. And not to interject here, but like you kind of touched on it, I didn't bring it up, was I'm a very big advocate in players buying in to their coach. You know what I mean? I don't want to say the word players coach, right, in quotes, but somebody you believe in, you know what I mean? And I thought and I'm not to get into Mickey, but like the players love that guy. Man, I saw personally guys wanting to play for that guy. I did not see that with Scott at the end of his tenure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a huge thing. Guys play for Kirby Smart. You know that. They love him, man. He's a dog. No pun intended, in that locker room. You know what I mean? I've seen speeches and I mean, that you need a guy that relates, man. And that's what I hope Matt, and I think he's probably about that. That makes me happy. That gives me some hope, right? That's all we can wish for as a fan base, right? As Nebraskans, like, shit, man. Hey, we got a chance. And like I said, I think you did a great job of talking about, like, bringing up the fact that, like, the scheme. I think Scott did hire a lot of guys, pick up a lot of dudes that, like, oh, he's a 4-star, right? Well, does he really do what you want him to do in this offense that you run? And it showed a lot. Our offensive line looked like a bunch of, no offense, but skinny, tall guys that could maybe run block, but none of those dudes could pass block. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather look like a goddamn and run the ball with Anthony Grant. And nobody's going to tell me any different. I think Anthony Grant's still one of the most talented running backs in the country. Run the damn ball, get physical up front, look like some of those Michigan offensive lines they put out, or Wisconsin or Iowa, physical brand of football. You said it. You said the word physical, and that's where I get excited. Like, hey, you know what? Let's. I'm a receiver. Like, Jesus, let's just run the damn football, and get physical and run the ball. Establish some sort of dominance and some sort of freaking identity in this program. The identity, I use that word hasn't been around for a while now at Nebraska, and it bothers me because that's all I've ever known growing up as a little kid, watching it in the early 2000s. We had an identity. You knew when Nebraska stepped on the football field, hey, we're going to fucking establish the run. What are you going to do to stop it? You know what I mean? And that's where I want to get back to. Now, that's easier said than done. Yes, every program wants to do something like that. Get it. But we haven't had one in like 15, 20 years here. You know what I mean? It's every year it's something different. Every coach, it's something different. And we've had enough coaches. That's where I hope Matt Rule steps in and says, you know what, this is what we're going to do. This is the type of football I want to, play. And we recruit those type of guys for that. And yeah, it's going to take time. I don't care. Nobody wins year one unless you're like super crazy lucky. Let's establish some sort of program, recruit the guys. It's going to take a little bit. And everybody doesn't want to hear that word, take time. But it's got to happen, man. Because like you said, step back and just look at it, man. I'm tired of this. It seems like every 4 years, new coach. You know what I mean? And we all buy in. We all want it to happen. Of course we do. Nebraska has probably the best fan base in America. I truly believe that when it comes to college sports. It's time to figure this out, man. I want to see us. I'm 37 years old. I've been a Nebraska fan since a 4, I think. So, like, I don't care if it takes me 5 years. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be able to compete for titles in the Big Ten and be competitive and not, 15, 16 wins in 4 years, dude? Like, we haven't made a bowl game. We had a streak, I think, nation's longest streak of making bowl games. Like, this is getting to a point where it's not to go on another tangent here, but I mean, like, and interject your whole comments on this stuff, Christian, but like something needs to change, man. It does. You know what I mean? And I think Matt Rule, he has turned my head. I think he does care. And I'd be the first to tell you if I didn't think he did. So go ahead, man. Apologize for the rant there. I just, I get pretty hyped about this Nebraska stuff. So
no, you're good, man. Like I said, I mean, that's your team, and I get it. It's frustrating, it's, like you said, it's just trying to put it all together. And that kind of bleeds in, I think, to the next segment on this is what to expect this year from Nebraska. I mean, look, if I'm Matt Rule, again, based off what I watched last year, what you watched last year, what I would probably do is I would put the football, the first thing I would do as soon as the pads come on, is I would put the football at the 1 yard line on the goal line. And I would say, hey, first string offense, first string defense, everybody get on the ball. You get one play, you know what I mean? One play. If you score, then you don't have to run the rest of practice. And defense, if you stop them, you don't have to run the rest of practice. Right. And I would instill that toughness there, right? And that's just one day. We're not going to do that every single day. I mean, you've got to make sure, especially nowadays where they're trying to bastardize the tackling, and they're trying to do all of this stuff to make the game less physical. I think you have to rep and you have to drill that as much as you possibly can, so that way you don't make those mistakes. You don't miss tackles. You're not as physical. You have to really do that as much as you possibly can. I heard somebody say, when we talk about, what to expect this year and kind of bleeding into this, I remember I talked to somebody about that when I saw that spring game and they weren't tackling. And they said, well, they don't have, the kind of athletes that Georgia does. If our, first string middle linebacker who's played for us for 4 years gets hurt, who are we going to replace him with? And my thought process and my answer, I didn't have an answer for that at the time, but now I kind of do. And that's, well, the guy that's going to have to play next year when he ends up going out of the program. So you have to get these guys playing as much as you possibly can, so you get that experience. Yep. So it's not, the gap between, classes is a little bit better. I think for me, what I expect from Nebraska this year, and I kind of pulled it up over here on the side, I'm looking at who's in the Big Ten West. I think arguably of the Power Five, really, and there's really, it's the SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Big 12 and everybody else like that, Pac-12. I mean, the Big Ten West is probably one of the most winnable divisions, I think, out there. For right now.
Absolutely.
I mean, so to sit here and say, hey, like I'm looking at the standings last year. Purdue 6-3, Illinois went 5-4, Iowa 5-4, Minnesota 5-4, Wisconsin 4-5. Nebraska 3-6, Northwestern 1-8. I think Nebraska really could be in line for a 180. on that. I think they can win the Big Ten West this year.
With that 180, Christian,
Mhm.
once you put your money where your mouth is, what's the record?
What's my prediction for the record okay. So
I want you to grab a hold of your wiener and give me an honest answer, bro.
So for this, I got to pick the one. So I let you pick the one for the graphics. So I'll kind of tell you. I'll kind of go through it here.
All right.
Okay. I've got their schedule pulled up. Minnesota. I think that's a dub. I think they can beat Minnesota at Minnesota. First game of the year.
All right.
You're getting Casey Thompson back. You know what I mean? You're getting Anthony Grant back. You've got to
stay Minnesota.
Yeah.
They like to run a little smash mouth, man. We've had a tough time with them in years past.
Yeah, but I think
they can run the ball. I know they don't have what's his bucket at running back this year, but
they got some talent coming in. They got a Georgia linebacker, and they got some of our players, so they got some pieces in there. They're going to get some key pieces back.
I'll give you that one. Okay.
They do have to figure out, like you said, you brought up a good point. They're going to have to figure out defensive tackle. You can't play that bullshit soft Sharman fucking. Oh my God, we got Alabama's 4th string defensive tackle. We're going to be really, really great because he was a 4-star in high school, and he gets washed off to the sideline like it's the fucking blind side, Yep. I mean, we can't do that. You have got to be able to take on double teams, get your backers in there and go blow fucking plays up. I mean, that's what you have to do if you're going to beat teams like Minnesota. So this is just assuming that Matt Rule is, again, schematically taking what he's learned throughout his time at the college level and making sure his coordinators are applying that in the right way. So I think they can beat Minnesota. I think Colorado, they've got some good players and they've got Deion Sanders. That's an interesting game. It's at Colorado.
It's the one we're going to disagree on.
I think for me, this is what I think. I think Colorado's a couple years away from turning it around. Okay. I think they have a lot of good players, but you got to look at the roster, right? Like they've got a couple of, 5-star athletes there. They've got some really good players. And then the rest of them is the rest of the Colorado team that was there. You know what I mean? Some Jackson State players too.
I'm going to interject on this. Every team you bring up. I 100% agree. But I don't know what it is about Deion Sanders, man. The guy, watching him as a player growing up, right, in the NFL. That guy wins wherever the fuck he's at, man. And I know he's arrogant. A lot of people don't like him. And I'm not saying he's the world's best freaking college coach because he's very out there, right? And he truly believes in himself. But he's got his kid at quarterback, man. That kid can play. I don't know. Have you watched him, Shedeur Sanders, play, dude? I know it was Jackson State last year, and they didn't play the toughest competition, like, playing in the SEC. Kid can play, though. I mean, the kid is an athlete back there. We struggle tremendously with athletes at quarterback on the defensive side of ball. Scares the shit out of me with that team because I'm like, and it's at Colorado. That's kind of I know, Nebraska at home anymore is pretty much a joke. Everybody comes in and pretty much whoops our ass anymore, it seems like. But that game to me is a coin flip because it's so early in the season. Colorado's going to have a lot of hype, right? Say, I don't know who their first game is, right? But you know what I mean? That's the one where I could flip a coin and say those two teams at the end of the year are probably way different where they started the year. You see that a lot in college football. Like, 8 weeks later, a team is 100 times better than what they were and, 100 times worse, vice versa. So that one, I am very questionable. I will throw a question mark on that one. I honestly could flip a coin right now because I don't think Colorado, I know they sucked last year, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, but let me ask you this, though. I mean, this kind of, and we'll definitely do another episode on this, but, the Arch Manning kid, right? I mean, he looked great, but he was at a level 3 high school. You know what I mean? I mean, I watched a game that he played in where a 3-star running back, I think, who committed to go play at like Iowa State, looked far better than him. I mean, that same running back picked him off when he was playing defense. You know what I mean? And he's supposed to be the number 1 player in his class. I mean, my question is, I'm going to throw it back to you on this at the Colorado. This is the battle for Colorado right here, by the way. I mean, this is the I-80 battle of the boys, Yeah.
Well,
my question is, you rather have Casey Thompson or Shedeur Sanders as your quarterback? Who would you, if you look at it from a quarterback standpoint, whether it be arm, athletics, whatever, who would you rather have?
Shedeur Sanders. I mean, I know you're packing that mini Pringles can over there, but look, man, I am telling you right now, it just, and I hate Colorado. Hate. Like, that's the one team I wish the worst upon, right? Every year as a true college football, I fucking hate them. That team, though, and Deion Sanders and just everything I've ever seen that guy do, people gravitate towards him, man. Obviously, because he's an NFL superstar. He's a Hall of Famer. He's probably the best corner to ever play the game. Just, man, that guy wins, man. I know people don't like it, but like, it scares me that it's so early in the season and it's on the road. Matt Rule's a new coach too. And I know you just threw up the Casey Thompson, Shedeur Sanders. Yeah, Casey Thompson has all the experience in the world, bro. Absolutely. The guy's what, like a fifth-year senior, I believe? I'm just worried, man. But if you want to ask me who's a better quarterback, man, right now, that kid's an athlete back. I think you need a little film study there, Christian. I think you're hating on a kid from Jackson State, but no, you're right though. You have some really good points bringing him up. He is a 5-star recruit. He's obviously, some of that has to do with his last name, but that kid, to me, man, I'm just worried a little bit because Nebraska against fucking athletic quarterbacks, they get destroyed, dude. And I just haven't seen the turnaround. If it would be different if I saw, hey, Nebraska can actually stop somebody that can run the ball from the quarterback position, then I would have a little more faith. And I know I should give Matt Rule more faith. This kind of ties into him too. So I'm a little skeptical on this whole thing, man. So, but I hope you're right, dude. I can't believe I just said that Colorado might be Nebraska. That like actually bothers me to even say it. So,
you know, I might actually eat my words here. I went while you were talking, I went back and I looked at him, you know, for 24/7. Yeah, he was a 4-star recruit, Shedeur Sanders was. So I mean, he's not a scrub. I'm not going to sit here and say he's a scrub. You know, I wasn't trying to imply that. I just meant when you look at, and I think it has to be mentioned, you know, he hasn't really played anybody yet. You know, I mean,
agreed.
You know, so it's hard to really gauge that. And again, it's, you know, I think even Deion said this, you know, is he's got to build the line. You know, he's got to build an offensive line there, and he's got to build a defensive line. You know, he even said it, I think, when he was talking about, you know, trying to take on Saban, and that is, he even said it, you know, when he was trying to take on Saban. He's a couple years away from being able to, you know, build the line up, you know, there. Yeah. I mean, and he's just got to do it. So, you know, what I'll kind of do here, Chris, is I'm going to kind of get into, you know, I'll kind of get into this right here is I'll keep breaking down the schedule, you know, for you real quick here. So let's take a look at
Christian.
Yeah.
I got to interject you, buddy. I got to take a piss so goddamn bad right now. Might have to break the video here real quick.
Yeah, you're good. Go for it. We'll wait for you.
All right. Thanks.
I'll kind of keep them going. But yeah, you know, I think as far as the Shedeur Sanders kid, you know, he's got an opportunity. You know, I mean, I haven't really broke down a lot of Colorado stuff this year. I mean, we can kind of while he's going for that, I mean, we can take a look. Oh man, they open their season off at TCU. Okay, I mean, well, that actually might be a good game. That's one I could see going either way. Then they're at Nebraska. They're at home against Nebraska. That could be a winnable game for them. They go play Colorado State. Then they're going to play at Oregon, USC, at Arizona State, Stanford, at UCLA, Oregon State, Arizona, at Washington State, and then at Utah. Man, that is a hell of a schedule right there. And I know, you know, if they can win, if they can win 5-6 games this next year, I would be pretty impressed. I really, really would if they could eke that out. I mean, that'd be impressive. Chris, while you were gone, I pulled it up. I was talking about, you know, Colorado and their schedule. They have got a doozy of a schedule. Have you seen their schedule?
I'm pulling it up right now. Let's take a look here. Looks like Utah. No, sorry, TCU, Nebraska, Colorado State, Oregon, USC. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
But
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So getting back into it, I think those are still winnable games for Nebraska when you look at what they've got from a talent standpoint
Yep.
and who they're going to be playing. And if Matt Rule can kind of jump in and kind of do everything, let's say they beat Minnesota and Colorado. Okay, let's say that they do. Then you go on to what is that? Northern Illinois, NIU. They play NIU, so that should be a win for them too.
Yep.
Louisiana Tech. So you've got a realistic shot at starting off 4-0.
Agreed.
And then you play Michigan. Now you get Michigan at home. That's kind of one where I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to pretty it up. I think that's a loss. I think Harbaugh and McCarthy. Now you never know. I mean, McCarthy could get hurt. Maybe they have an off game. Something could happen.
I'm gonna interject real quick on you, not to cut it too much on you here, but Blake Corum's coming back. He didn't declare for the draft, dude. That kid I thought was probably the best running back in football last year, other than maybe Bijan Robinson at Texas. This kid's really, really good. Their backup at Michigan is really, really freaking good. We saw it most of the year when he came in, just when they were up big. You know what I mean? So we haven't proved that we can stop the run yet, and that's where Matt Rule, maybe he comes in first couple games, dude, just shuts people down. Shedeur Sanders, you know what I mean? And then maybe we have a little bit different outlook. But if you watch Michigan, dude, they love to run the football. They're old school Nebraska. Honestly, they're kind of that mid-tier 20s, Alabama team, right? They're going to pound the ball down your goddamn throat. What are you going to do about it? Now, I'm not going to get into the playoff game against TCU. We'll talk about that later. But, let's just chalk that. We would agree that's a loss, right? I can agree up to maybe we're 4-1 at that point, right? After that game.
Yeah. And I think so 4-1 after that game, then you play Illinois. I think that's a dub. Northwestern, that's a dub.
I'm going to stop you on Illinois, man. They had a really good season last year, dude.
Yeah, they did, but it's from the basis of, think about this. Think about this. Yeah. Think about it from this standpoint. I'm giving them the W because of just having a competent guy running their program. You look at from a roster standpoint, what Nebraska has been able to do and where the rest of the Big Ten West has been at. Nebraska, I think, has out-recruited a lot of those teams in the Big Ten West. And it's just the incompetence at the top there. I think you get the right guy in Matt Rule, right, which you believe he is. I think these are all games that you should be able to win with a proper off-season, training program. And they bring in a couple of 5-star athletes on both sides of the ball at linebacker and at tight end, which are two pivotal positions. And then I think they also had a good, recruiting class. Now, with that being said, I think that, so now you're 5-1, 6-1. Purdue, they're getting that kid. I think the Hudson Card from Texas, he's coming over to Purdue. That could be a tough one. Again, I'm just going to chalk it.
Us fucking tough though, bro.
Yeah,
they do for some reason. So you don't go ahead. I'm going to wait till you finish this off here a little bit. Then I'm going to have to give it to you hard, man.
Yeah, I think, here, let's do this. Let's, let me get through it, and then I'll kick it back to you, and we'll pull your graphic up, and we'll see what you got.
As much as I can throughout this.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, I'm cool-headed here. I'm 190 pounds of fucking determination.
Yeah, you're a fucking monster, bro. I wouldn't touch you, dude.
No, but so I think the Purdue game could be a toss-up. I think, again, if you do well, I think they can beat them at Michigan State. That's a tough one. I think that they could lose that one. So now we've got 2 losses. Maryland, they're playing I think Tagovailoa is still there, isn't he?
He is.
Yeah. So that if he stays healthy, that could be an interesting one. But again, looking at this schedule and who they should be able to beat and where I'm going to kind of go with it, at Wisconsin and Iowa, I'll split that. So we'll go, that's 3 losses. I'd say worst case, you're looking at a 4-loss team. I'd say best case, you're looking at probably a 2 or 3 loss team there.
So give me your record. I want it now. We're going to put this down as like a water bet type of thing here.
Fuck that. I want a case of top tier whiskey on this.
Well, I got you, bro. Give me a Nebraska record. I'm writing it down right now. This is going to be on paper, on air. Lay that fucking wiener out there. What do you got for a record? Let's go.
Fuck. I will go, just to be safe, I'm going to go 8-4.
God damn it, man. Like, you come in here talking all this shit, making it sound like, Nebraska's going to go like 10-2 or some shit and competing for a Big Ten title.
But to be fair, though, Purdue won the division last year at 6-3, or sorry, at 8-6. Should I say?
Get it, but you're not going to see that again this year.
I think you will, respectfully, because of the turnover in that division.
This fucking guy, man. I mean, what are you talking like? You acting like we're going 10-2, and then you switch it up on me and go 8-4. No, I got you. I'm gonna agree with most of your points on this. Colorado scares me more than it does you. Michigan, we're gonna chalk that up for an L, right? Do I hope we win that game or be competitive? Absolutely. Illinois, I'm not putting it. I know Brandon Peters is gone. Those guys, like, I get it. Northwestern, Jesus, man. I like to say that's a W. They seem to play everybody tough, though. This division sucks. But Michigan State, Maryland, Maryland's got some people coming back, by the way. Depending on where we're at in the season. This is a lot of like if, ands, or buts here, but like, God, I'm gonna have you said safe. I was hoping you'd go 9 or 10 wins, man. I really was on the dot with 8-4, Christian. That was honestly where I was at. I don't want to say 7-5, then that's pretty much a 500 season. Fuck it, man. 9-3.
There he is.
9-3. I can't tell you who the 3 losses are, though.
Yeah, I mean, this is a hard team to kind of.
It is.
If you're betting your mortgage on it, I would never do that. Not with this. But if you're betting the house on it, I mean, I could see a situation where they have 3 or 4 wins this year again, just as well as I could see them winning the division and competing for a Big Ten championship. Sorry, playing in a Big Ten championship game.
I will not. I can promise you, I will run around naked. This circle that I live in out here in Eagle, Nebraska, will win more than 4 fucking games this year. I can promise you that.
Are you gonna write that down?
It cannot get much worse than what it's been, bro. I mean, it can always get worse, yes, but not. We're gonna win more than 4 games. If it's 5, so be it. I don't see that happening either. I definitely see Nebraska getting to a bowl game, which 6 wins most years. I mean, you probably get in with that or qualify for that, I should say, most times.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I that's where I'm at. That to me, even if the Christian is just that thing, if I get 6 wins, bro, we make a bowl game. That's a win in my opinion, because that is better than where the fuck we've been the last 4 years. Not the last 1 year, 2 years, 4 or 5, whatever it's been. It's been a while, bro. It's been a while.
Let me ask you this, because now you've got me curious. Oh boy. What is, and I kind of want to go a little bit broader spectrum here. Let's say Nebraska has a great year this year. They have a winning season.
What's considered great to you?
Again, everything's relative. So a good to great year for me for Nebraska, winning a bowl game, having a winning season.
6, 7, 8 wins. Okay.
6, 7, 8 wins this year. Yeah. Next year they have 8 or 9 wins. The year after that they have another 8 or 9 win season.
Okay.
At what point do you want to see more? At what point is that not enough? You know what I mean?
You ask a really good question here from a lifelong Nebraska fan, right? And most Nebraska fans are, man, I'm going to piss some people off when I say this, but a lot of Nebraska fans, casual Nebraska fans or Nebraska fans as a whole, like to think that we're every year is, we're flipping it around, right? Because they have all that faith because what they've seen in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s back in my dad's age and so on. Bo Pelini is a prime example of that, by the way. That guy won 9 games every fucking year and competed in bowl games. Now, he did get his ass kicked a lot, and I'm not a Bo Pelini hater. I think it was time for him to go because he couldn't handle the media, because the guy was a hothead, and it was just looking bad time and time again. And I'm not going to get stuck on that tangent. But when would it be enough, man? I don't know. Like, it has a lot to do with, like, I'm a very big advocate in, do you continue to get better year after year after year? You establish some sort of like identity, which I brought up earlier, if anybody's followed this podcast. And are you making kids better, like guys like that come to your program, right? Whether you're a 4-star, 3-star, I don't care about your stars. I don't give much credence to that. But are you getting better when you the time you entered the program and then left the program? And now I could say this right now. A lot of guys I've seen the last 4 or 5 years that, I mean, I could talk about the NFL because I'm more into that. Guys from Nebraska that leave Nebraska are, they're highly recruited. They were a 4-star, didn't do shit really at Nebraska overall. In the NFL, they somehow seem to produce. And I believe a lot of that is coaching. I want to see guys come into Nebraska as whether you're a 3-star, leave a fucking crazy good player, get to the NFL and be a great player, right? Now I can name a bunch of guys in the NFL. Shit, you can watch the national title game or the Super Bowl the other night, and a couple of Nebraska guys playing on both those teams. Didn't do really much for Nebraska when they were there. So I want, and other than Ndamukong, obviously, but like, I mean, those are things I want to see. So like overall as a coach, when does it become enough? I'm not mad about competing, Christian, for Big Ten titles. That's my goal every freaking year. And I think that should be the goal for Nebraska, competing. And I mean that is like, you don't have to get there 7 straight years in a row, right? But I want to get back to where kind of Bo had us almost. He did play for, I think, a couple of them. Consistently every year being the team in this division as currently constructed, which I'm sure will change, being one of those top teams, right? I can handle that because I know that like once out of every 5 years, Nebraska should have that top 5 team. You know what I mean? Like, you see what I'm saying here, like kind of building up to that. And I know that takes time, and everybody right now in Nebraska would die for that. But becoming that, and I don't know what Matt Rule's plan is. Do I think Matt Rule's going to stay here forever being super successful? No, I don't think he's that guy that wants to be here forever. But if he can take us to that spot, and then we maybe get somebody else in later. I know we're talking hypothetically here, but that's a tough question, man. You put me on the spot with that one, man. That's a tough one. Like, I just want to see success, and I want to see us winning ball games against teams that we should fucking be winning against. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. I mean, I asked the question because as a Georgia fan, I experienced that for decades. I mean, it was one of those things where, yeah, we were one of probably the most consistent teams in college football.
How many times you guys go 10-2?
Jesus Christ. I mean, it felt like for majority of the 2000s, and that's what ultimately got Mark Richt fired. Nebraska is a microcosm of that. We were just happy to be competing for the SEC at certain points, I think, in covering Nebraska last year and getting a chance to kind of see the fan base in the comment section and in real life, here's the thing, you have a winning season this year. Oh my God, they're going to have a Matt Rule day. You have a winning season the next year, but you still lose 4 or 5 games. Okay, slightly disappointing. Year 3, year 4, you're doing the same thing. You have a sort of James Franklin-esque type thing there where
that's a perfect example.
You know what I mean? Where you're the 3rd or 4th best team in the Big Ten, but you're not really relevant on a national stage. Then it's kind of getting to the point where, as a fan base, we're looking for the next guy.
You're becoming complacent, basically. Like if you're okay with James Franklin right now, right?
Yeah.
And I don't mean to interject on that. I can talk about that guy because I think he's a damn good ball coach. I just don't know if he is the top. He's not the Jim Harbaugh. He's not the Ryan Day at Ohio State, right? He's not. Yeah. He's not there. He's had a lot of talent, though. A guy puts out NFL prospects right and left. That's where it kind of looks to me as like, is your coaching not up to standard with? And I'm sure as a fan base for Penn State, they're probably thinking the same thing, right? Like, why the fuck aren't we competing for one of these Big Ten titles? You know what I mean? Why are we not knocking off Michigan, or knocking off Ohio State? They play them tough most of the time, but you know what I mean? And God, sorry to interject there, man. That was a perfect example of like, if you're a Penn State fan right now, are you happy with James Franklin? You know what I mean? Like, that to me is like a very good comparison.
Which, I mean, that's kind of where I look at it too. I mean, let me go back here and let me look at it. Yep, just like I thought, he went to Penn State. Yeah, I mean, here's the reality of it. I mean, that's become a pretty big thing now, is like coaches going back to their alma maters and trying to kind of recreate it. Here's how I foresee this. If you, gun to my head and said, hey, how do you think this is going to play out? I think he's going to have, above average success at Nebraska. Do I think he's going to get him competing in the playoffs? Possibly, if it's an expanded format here in a couple of years.
That's going to happen.
I think that Penn State fans are going to get more and more pissed off that, their team isn't, competing or you know what I mean? Or they're kind of in that other side, the Big Ten East.
Ohio State, Michigan, which is always boxed in every year, basically, as being there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And they're kind of flip-flopping with Michigan State and some of these other teams as to who's the third or fourth best team in that division.
Right.
And I think eventually they let him go or he goes somewhere else. And I ultimately think that's where Matt Rule will end up, and then that kind of leaves Nebraska at another sort of awkward sort of situation where they have to figure it out, where you're better than the Scott Frost tenure, you're looking to make that next step up. And I think that's where Ndamukong Suh comes in to play, and I think he becomes the head coach 2027.
I like that wink you gave me. I will say this, man. I'd love to see him. I think he retires after this year personally, obviously, but I'd like to see him come back here. I mean, he's donated a ton to Nebraska. We can get on him, but like I do, he really has a heart for the Skurs here, man. I'd love to see him come back and actually, you know what, coach that fucking defensive line, bro. That guy got robbed of a Heisman Trophy. He was the best player in college football, by the way. I could debate anybody on that all day, by the way. That guy was the best player in college football that year.
Yeah,
I know nobody wants to give it to defensive players. The only guy to ever win it, I believe, is Charles Woodson. So he had to play offense and fucking kick returner. So, but yeah, no, I'm with you 100%, man. I do kind of compare him to. That's where I kind of think with like my future with Matt Rule personally, just me as a person and a fan, a diehard fan, if you will. I kind of think that's where he's at, But like we haven't gotten there yet, so we have a lot to prove yet. But like if he does give us some 7, 8, 10 win seasons, and we kind of sit in that thing, I hope I'm wrong. I hope he wants to stay here for the rest of his life if he's successful. So we don't know that yet. There's a lot to be determined. Obviously, that's why we're having this discussion. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like we're like you asked a really good question. Where are Nebraska fans at with it? That's going to vary so much in this state because there's people that are happy. People hated when we got rid of Pelini. There's still that fan base. I see it all the time on Facebook and other posts that like should have kept Pelini. We were happy with 9 wins every year. I was not. I thought some of those teams were way better than 9 personally. And I guess to me, I'm a realist. Like I think Nebraska should be competing every year for, a Big Ten title or being competitive in that this playoff is going to expand. That is happening. So I would like to see us get, not every year if you don't get in there, but like get, have a shot, man. That's all anybody can hope for, right? You get in there, you win a couple games. Look at the NCAA tournament in basketball. You know what I mean? Everybody's record 0-0 when you look at TCU this year. How many people started the year? What was TCU rated, Christian, started the year?
They were, I remember covering them in the offseason as like maybe an up-and-coming team. I mean, but they weren't really, they weren't really like on the – I don't want to say they weren't on the radar. They just – I don't think anybody thought they were going to do what they did. I mean, it was more Texas and Oklahoma and Baylor and Oklahoma State. The
national landscape, though, thought that, hey,
yeah,
TCU is going to be playing fucking Georgia in a national title game. You know what I mean? I would have thought you were fucking nuts. The game where they beat Michigan,
well, did they play Georgia in the national championship? I didn't think they showed up.
Jesus Christ! Would have to.
No, but you're exactly right though.
I don't know if they played Jesus Christ himself. I mean, the way they looked out there was bad, but I also put a lot of credit though, Christian, at Georgia. Man, you guys were just so dominant. That the national title game, let's be honest, was Ohio State and Georgia. You guys can thank that fucking kicker, by the way. So
yeah, I told you this. Remember, I called you right before before all this stuff kicked off, and they did the championship weekend, and I said, listen, I really thought that they should have figured out a way to do. Oh God, they should have put Ohio State at number 3. In my opinion.
Do you remember the way they did the seeding? Did you watch the actual live when they do the seeding on ESPN when they find out who's 1, 2, 3, and 4 and who makes it?
Yeah, I did.
That was bullshit. The way they did that. That was they didn't want Ohio State playing Michigan in the first round.
Why?
Do you remember that? That was there was a lot of controversy behind it. Anybody that's watching this would probably agree that's a football fan like, holy shit. TCU should have been a 4 seed. They should have been playing fucking Georgia the first game, right?
Yep.
But then ratings and money, and I believe that kind of had something to play with. Like, well, we don't want to see Ohio State play Michigan again because they just played, right? So we got to let them battle it out, and if they meet in the national title game, so be it. Which was bullshit to me because I actually thought Georgia played TCU. They were the worst of the 4 teams. Georgia would have obviously kicked their ass, obviously, as we saw. And then you would have gotten probably Ohio State. I think probably would have won that game. We don't know. Then that would have been that national. I thought Ohio State had the best chance of beating Georgia out of any of those teams in there because of CJ Stroud.
Yep.
Jackson Smith-Njigba and freaking what's his bucket, the Harrison kid I love a lot, Harrison Jr. And they could put up points to keep up with Georgia. I know we're not trying to talk about playoffs here last year, but like I actually was really upset the way that freaking panned out, and a lot of people, even Kirk Herbstreit and the guys, were like, why do they got like Ohio State at 4? Like, you know what I mean? It just didn't make a lot of sense personally, but. Anyway, I'll give it back to you, Christian.
Yeah, I was just going to say I agree with you. I thought from a rating standpoint, I thought the Michigan-Ohio State game would have been a much better, and I thought that's the way it was going to go. I told you before that anybody played in championship weekend, I was like, it's going to be – I got the teams right, but I was wrong in the order that they were going to be in.
Same.
And that's what, like, I was pissed off because I was like, I wanted to see Michigan and Ohio State because I think if Michigan and Ohio State played again, I think Ohio State would have got that ass. I really do. And it's not even because I'm trying to hate on Michigan. I just think, that revenge game, that is a factor. I mean, look at Georgia and Alabama the year prior.
Yep. I think Ohio State had, and I hate Ohio State, but like they had a lot of pieces. That team could put up points when needed. If called upon, I think they would have look at that. You watched that Ohio State Georgia game, bro. I mean, your butthole had to be puckering a little bit during that game. That was a damn good football game. I watched that thing every second of that game, man. That was a hell of a freaking football game on both sides. Both Georgia, both Ohio State. I know it came down to that missed field goal, which I thought the mishandling of Ohio State, bro, and I know you don't want to hear that, of clock management on that whole freaking drive there at the end was bullshit, if you remember that. God, they fucked that away. That was on the coaching. That wasn't on the kicker. That was just piss poor play calling there at the end, but
yeah, I can admit it with you. I can definitely.
You know what I mean? And I didn't have a favorite in that team. Or in that game. Sorry, but it was just very, very, very piss poor. Like, and those two teams, when at the end of it, when it was decided, I thought, damn, that should have been the two teams. I thought before the playoff seedings came out, I thought those were the two teams I actually had in the finals. I was like that game, those two teams, just because of the firepower on both offenses.
Yeah, I agree. I think Ohio State should have won that game. I mean, just honestly, but Kirby and those, Kirby does a great job in those weird close games. I mean, he can close it out. So, yeah, let's get into this. This is something that we talked about a little bit. This is an interesting topic. Dylan Raiola, the number one quarterback in the 2024 class.
Oh boy.
He's got a decision to make, and right now, as it appears, he's got some teams up there. One of the, two of the teams happen to be the teams we've covered today on today's show, which just so happen to be our favorite teams, Nebraska and Georgia. I'll kind of kick it over to you and let you kind of start off on it. What do you think?
I'm going to kick it over to you. I'm going to hear your thoughts because you're a Georgia boy. So I want to hear what you have to say and your insight go against mine right now. So I'm going to let you you give me what you think there, big dog. And what do you think?
I think
this is going to be super tough, by the way. So.
This is going to be tough. I mean, because we're talking about a kid in high school who, has been, I don't know. I think it's a situation where I think anybody that gets him is gonna be really lucky to get him. I think he's a great player.
Damn.
I read an article the other day. Matthew Stafford talked about him, and he said he hadn't seen him in a while because Matthew Stafford actually played with his dad, on the Lions, and he said the kid's bigger than he is, already in high school. And the other thing he was saying is like, his dad, I forgot the dad's name. But anyways, he was sending Matt, clips of Dylan and, some of his practice film in high school. And Matt said he was blown away by it. I think, I don't know. I think Dylan's going to probably end up a Husker, That's where my heart's kind of leaning with it. But I will say this. I think that if he went to Georgia,
oh boy,
if he went to Georgia, I think that would just be, it would just be unstoppable. Honestly, I think the Dogs would have a great path for when he would get to town. He'd come to town. He'd probably sit for a year under Carson Beck, or whoever ends up being the quarterback this year for Georgia. And then he's got a real legitimate shot to play, in a couple of years. And I think that would just be sort of the creme de la creme coming to the top, right as Texas and Oklahoma are entering into the chat, into the SEC.
Yeah. I love your sob story to try to get him to Georgia, and that's great. He's coming here, bro. He's coming here. Write it down. He's coming here. The kid is great. I know people that personally know like his family and stuff around here and shit, and they said like, there's like, I'll be honest with you, I'm gonna be the first one to probably say this on air. Scott Frost is the guy that kind of deterred him for a long time from coming here. You know what I mean? Yeah. The way Scott Frost handled that whole recruiting thing, I'm not gonna get into that personally on here, but I kind of know some stories on that. I think he comes here, dude. And yes, overall, it's not just because I'm biased towards Nebraska, right? I think he comes here because I think if you listen to the kid talk, he's actually very, very mature for his age when he talks. Kind of reminds me, I don't want to say, I'm not going to go out on a limb here and say Jalen Hurts. You hear him talk in the NFL for the Eagles. Very wise beyond his years, but like he knows enough. This kid's been talked about for years, bro. I've been hearing this kid's name thrown out when he was a freshman in high school. You know what I mean? Like this kid was hyped up to be what he's supposed to be. And yeah, does everybody pan out to be that way? No. And could this kid fail? Absolutely. Every one of us could fail at anything, but like, I think that I truly do believe he comes here. I think he's actually, I said this to my girlfriend's son, who's almost 15 here, and he follows recruiting like crazy. And we talk about him every day in a goddamn weight room, bro. He's a guy that I think can actually change Nebraska's culture where we're at. We all talk about the quarterback position being the most important, right?
Yep.
I think and again, I'm putting a lot of faith in a freaking young kid here, but his hype, and boy, if you've seen him throw a football, and I don't get very excited at all about high school highlight tapes. Fuck, Christian, I could look at yours as quarterback and be like, well, that guy looks like he's going to play in the NFL, we could say that about anybody, right? Me in high school catching passes and shit like that, playing defense. To me, it's more, I just think this kid actually does have a little bit of buzz around him. I think he could come in here and kind of reignite an offense. Kid can throw the football, bro. He is a fucking rocket. If Matthew Stafford's talking about him, I think Matthew Stafford turned out pretty well. He's borderline Hall of Famer in the NFL right now with one Super Bowl. The guy has a lot of records, and boy, I watched him play at Georgia, and that guy has like probably one of the craziest arms I've ever seen. Stat-wise, you're talking about arm ability, so I could get into the whole thing about that. But like, I think he's coming here, from my understanding, and it could have changed. Yes, could I be wrong? Absolutely. I hope he does come here because I'm a Nebraska fan. I know you're a Georgia fan. You want him, rightfully so. But I think he comes here. I think he's a guy that can kind of up. I think Matt Rule can recruit.
Yeah,
we need a quarterback. Especially after this year, because of the whole Jeff Sims and Casey Thompson. I'll be interested if you really want to ask me about how they think Nebraska's going to use him this year. I think it'll be kind of cool, but he's a guy that I think can kind of change the dynamic of a team, especially in college football. If he's really as good as they say he is, kind of get other people to come in, right? He looks really good his freshman year. We're talking hypothetically here, and we're talking about a high school kid that's never thrown a fucking college pass yet, but he's got a lot of buzz, bro. And we have not had a true quarterback in 20 plus years. I'll leave it at that.
He's the kind of kid is a talent, for his class that is so good that you keep his uncle on staff, on retainer to coach your worst position on your team, arguably one of your worst positions, which is offensive line.
Absolutely. You brought that up. Yep.
Just to get him to come to your school. And look, I honestly, now the more I think about it, Georgia never really. I mean, they had some quarterbacks. They can go out and get some. I mean, I think the last time they got like one of the better quarterbacks was Fields, you know.
Oh.
But I think the reason why he's flirting with Georgia, it just seems, the more I think about it, Chris, the more it doesn't really seem like a likely marriage between the both of them. It seems more like a in this world of NIL, it just seems like a sort of I don't want to say a stunt or anything like that, but it just seems more like a business decision to openly, publicly flirt with Georgia so you can drive up his valuation and maybe make a little bit more money on the NIL side of it.
And from his point of view, as this whole NIL thing is starting to take off, right? And I don't necessarily agree with all of it, but like, you guys have just won 2 national titles back to back, right?
Yeah.
You guys are the predominant fucking college football team. Let's say it. You know what I mean? You guys are. Everybody knows Georgia now football because of what you guys have done. I think you're exactly right. I think he's kind of like, well, I'm open to Georgia. I mean, fuck, these guys won 2 in a row, if they really want, you know what I mean? And I think it's a business type of decision. You have to play it that way, right? I mean, would you not, Christian, if you were in his shoes?
No, I'd commit to Georgia if I was in his shoes, but that's why
you've been, the entire time, but I get it.
But if I was in his shoes though, and I was, where's he live at? Arizona or Texas, I think is where he plays, but they live in Arizona. Yeah. If I was somewhere over there, it's tough. It's tough because, you look at Georgia, the best quarterback they've had in the last 20 years was Stafford.
Oh,
you know what I mean? As far as, the best quarterback that they've had, as far as championships and everything is concerned, is Stetson Bennett.
Yeah.
But in NFL talent, we're talking Matthew Stafford. Everybody else, I mean, you go back to Aaron Murray, Jake Fromm, a lot of those guys. I mean, they're great quarterbacks, but they did not do a whole hell of a lot in the NFL.
Right. But if you're, let's be honest, dude, when you're a number 1 quarterback coming out of high school, college is obviously important, but your number 1 goal is to play in the NFL, I'm assuming. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of guys we could go on the list that didn't make it as number 1 quarterbacks out of high school, but like he's thinking big term. I don't care what he can tell you he's not, but I mean, every kid knows that. Like, if you're the number 1 fucking quarterback in the country, bro, you're playing on Sundays. You know what I mean? That's your goal. Yeah. Like wherever the hell it is. And yeah, you're going to have to stop and make a stop at Georgia, or make a stop at Nebraska, or play at Tennessee or Florida State or Alabama or wherever. I mean, we could go down a list of teams, but like, I think that, dude, I've been hearing about this kid just because I'm from here. And I actually got my parents' neighbors are really good friends with his family. And they have talked about him since he was a freshman, dude. This kid, just keep an eye on him, and I'm like, damn, I never buy into hype, but like, he, to me, where we're at now, the Huskers are, just talking about them specifically, he could change the whole dynamic of a pro. You know what I mean? If he actually comes in as a freshman, and I'm not saying he's got to be a world beater, but he leads by example. He doesn't turn the ball over. Got an offensive line that's halfway ass and decent in front of him. You know what I mean? Like, you can change, because we haven't had that. And that is no knock on anybody that's came here. But we haven't had a lot of big name talent at quarterback. I mean, as much as I like Casey Thompson, he was average last year, right? You think of other quarterbacks we've had in the past, Taylor Martinez and Zach Taylor, who's coaching the Bengals now. I could think about a bunch, Joe Gantz. I could go back to Eric Crouch. You know what I mean? He won a Heisman Trophy, which is insane. We haven't had like a guy that like can kind of do it all since like Tommy Frazier, and Tommy Frazier wasn't even a great passer. We ran the ball predominantly. So I would love to see a guy like Dylan Raiola at his number 1 high school quarterback and been talked about forever. That would be great, dude. I think great. And does he pan out to be that way? We don't know, but just to get on track and just to be able to have some momentum, I think you get a number 1 quarterback in there, Christian, probably bring some other kids in that want to play wide receiver, right? I want to catch passes from this dude.
Well, I think they got one. Didn't they get that Malachi Coleman kid?
Yeah, he's a stud. You brought him up, yes. Yeah, he's a stud. He's a tremendous athlete.
Yeah, I think he'll be good. Let's get into this, because you brought it up. We're going to kind of go off script just a little bit here. You'd mentioned. Anyways, you had mentioned Jeff Sims.
Yes.
Yes. I'm looking up his stats right now.
Yep.
This Jeff Sims kid, I mean, he's he's looking pretty good. I mean, he was
Athlete.
at Georgia Tech. Yeah, he's an athlete. He had his first year, he had 1,800 yards, at Georgia Tech in 2020, 13 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Next year, he had, almost 1,500 yards. He had 12 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So he cut down on that. And then last year, he had 1,100 yards passing, 5 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. And it's interesting. He accounted for, almost 2,300 yards his first year and more than 19 touchdowns, which is pretty good, total. And he's kind of regressed a lot, but I mean, so did Georgia Tech as a team, out there. I think
dumpster fire as far as like that coaching carousel and everything that they've had with players and that whole program. I don't blame that all on him. I don't.
No, I don't blame it at all on him. I mean, they're trying to figure it out. And I think, again, he's, with the right system, he could be a very good athlete. I think he could be a very good quarterback. My question to you is, do you see in a situation where maybe Thompson goes down, they plug him in and he ends up getting a shot? What do you think his career looks like at Nebraska?
Okay. This is my thing. I don't know if I had seen a couple tweets. I don't know how much credibility you hold towards that kind of crap, and I don't even have Twitter, but I've heard through other people, him and Casey Thompson kind of have a little bit of a beef going back and forth, right? Because he's coming over here, right? Thompson was starting quarterback last year. I don't know how much I hold into this whole thing, but I've heard some things, and we could all speculate on certain shit, but and I want a quarterback competition, dude. I do. I think that makes everybody better. I truly, truly believe that. I think Casey gets a starting nod. I also think they're going to use Jeff Sims, though. I know Matt Rule's style of offense at Baylor. I like to kind of mix it up, kind of go with some goofy shit once in a while, kind of like what the Chiefs do, right? In the NFL. I think they're going to bring him in on certain plays, right? You know what I mean? Bring him in as a little bit of because he can run, dude. The kid is an athlete. Like, he is a tremendous runner. He can run. I think they kind of use him that way. And yeah, if to answer your question, if Thompson goes down, yeah, absolutely. I think he's no brainer, the second string quarterback. But if he has a really good season, or not season, but preseason with the team and everything, I think they use him in certain packages. You know what I mean? Little RPO with him. Bring Casey in. I've never been a fan of 2 quarterback system, but I could see where kind of use this kid, man. Casey's a good athlete, like as far as like a quarterback goes, but like he can run a little bit. But Sims, man, that kid, you want to run the fucking football. That kid's he kind of reminds me of Jalen Hurts, man. He's kind of a guy that can kind of poor man's Jalen Hurts, where you can he's basically a running back playing quarterback. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's a tall athletic kid. I mean, yes. I think they'll get him into some packages. They're going to definitely want to have some experience there, and try to see what he can do. I mean, I think, again, Casey Thompson's probably the guy when healthy.
Absolutely.
I definitely think he's your guy. You get Sims in there, let him get a little bit of experience, especially if the season starts to kind of go off the rails a little bit. You let him play.
Oh, for sure.
You let him play, let him get some experience. It's your first year, kind of like we talked about on both sides of the ball. You have to let these kids play, and you have to get them experience at this level in your system. I think that if you do land Raiola and you have this guy, that could be a good bridge there, because he's got, I think, 2 years of eligibility left, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right.
So I think that's going to be critical in kind of keeping the locomotive going there, for sure. Chris, let's kind of end it here. I kind of want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing. We were talked about the Super Bowl, a while back, and it should have just happened. But when we were watching that Super Bowl, we were hanging out, and one of the things that kind of happened was, in the middle of it, there was a USFL commercial that came on.
Oh, he's going there. He's going there.
And you turned to me and you said, "What'd you say to me?"
I said,
"You said,
go ahead. You tell me what I said, 'cause I know what I said, but go ahead, bro."
No, you tell me what you said. I want to see.
Well, fuck, man. I said that you're looking a little hefty, and can you still run a 40-yard dash without dying out there, or run an actual NFL play without being gassed?
What you
combine both of them right behind each other.
What you said to me was this. You said, "Are you going to watch that?" I said, "Watch that. Shit, I'm going to play in it." And you're like, that's when you said, so you think you could make it onto a USFL team? I said, fuck yeah, I can. You know what I mean? Then you said, oh, so you could run
Drinking pretty
15 plays back to back.
Oh, 15-yard drive. Yes.
Yeah, you could run 15 plays without having to come out of the game. I said, fuck yeah, I can. If I play defensive tackle, I could definitely do that.
Yeah, I don't. Christian, I don't think you understand, brother. I mean, you're not a small dude, bro.
No, I'm not. I played a little defensive tackle when I was in high school, but I was 215 pounds, at the highest level of classification.
Feel free to tell the audience what you're at now.
I'm a comfortable, sexy, sexy, bigger is better.
Sexy, all right, bro.
306 pounds.
Ooh,
I've been quietly bulking, over the years. I've been trying to cultivate some mass that most people desire. But that got me thinking, on the drive home, it was no hard feelings or anything like that. It was nothing like that.
I hate that guy, dude. He's a fucking ass. That's what you were thinking. That's what you were telling my cousin. I know, which is your wife, but yeah.
Yeah, I was like, it got me thinking, and I said, we should really capitalize on this, and we should put on a combine, right? Because the NFL combine's coming up, and I was like, well, we should do it around that. And then I started thinking a little more about it. I said, there's no way my fat ass in a couple of weeks is going to be able to run a 40-yard dash, or do the bench press without probably tearing a hamstring. I mean, I have been sort of quietly starting to work out again and do certain things like that to sort of start getting back into shape. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to end up doing a combine. Both of us are going to do it. We've got our own bets here, on this. And, one of the things that I think that we're going to do is we're going to do the 40-yard dash. We're going to do the bench press, and then we're going to do some on-field work and stuff like that. It's really long. I can kind of get into it, but basically, we're going to see if I can go 10 plays, as a defensive end, trying to rush the quarterback back to back to back to back. And we're going to really see if we can do it. Now, Chris seems to think that he is going to beat me, in the 40-yard dash. And I think that, is that pretty accurate there, Chris?
Oh, bro, I ran a sub 4.45 high school, bro. I know this isn't high school. This was 18 years ago, but played a little college receiver, bro. Like, come on now. This is something, Christian, where I love the attitude and the positive vibes you're giving off about yourself here, bro. But brother, can you run a sub 5.4?
Can I run a sub 5.4? That's going to be the question that it's going to be on everyone's mind when they watch this.
It is.
Can I break 5.4
up here lately? This is going to get fucking heated. Because I'm gonna hold you to that standard, Christian, because I know you're an athlete. I know you put on some weight since high school. I know you can talk a lot of shit. But can you deliver here on a sub 5.4 at what? How old are you, Christian?
I am a healthy 27 years old. I'll be 28 in March.
Okay.
Yeah, to answer your question.
You're talking to a guy 10 years older than you, by the way.
Yeah, and you've got about 100 pounds on me too. Let's just calm down. Now listen. We've talked about this, and I just want to throw this out there. Gorillas versus bears. When we talk about top end speed, okay, the bear is 10 miles an hour faster than the gorilla is.
Okay,
which you think, hey, a gorilla, it's a pretty muscled up son of a bitch right there.
You don't want to fuck with one of those.
But a bear is faster than that. So I'm just saying right now,
okay.
I'm not saying I'm going to break a speed record here. I'm not going to be Jordan Davis. You know what I mean? But if there's any chance that I could run, okay, if there's any chance I can run under a 5 flat 40, north of about 290, 280 pounds, then how do you not sign me to at least?
I'm least a roster. My fucking Dolphins tomorrow. And saying, hey, put this motherfucker at fucking defensive tackle. That's what I'm saying. But is it possible? That's the thing. I threw a number out here, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know. I know a lot about skill position numbers, right? What you should sort of run, combine, follow all that crap. What are you? Is 5.4 sustainable? Can you do that Is that something within your reach?
I think so, and let me explain why. Okay, let me explain I think sub 5.5 is a realistic thing. You know,
So
sub
should I
5.5.
set it 5.5?
Yeah, let's do 5.5 here. I think sub 5.5 is realistic, just because.
Stopwatch.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have access to like lasers. I mean,
shit in high school all the time, right? Right, lives with me. So.
Oh, okay, good.
He said he'd be down. I did bring this up today to him. I mean, he's laughing at me because he don't believe I can run a sub 5. By the way, so yeah. So I mean, we could do this.
I mean, I think we're going to at this point.
Okay.
I mean,
okay. Well, yeah. I mean,
so I've got, my personal goal is sub 5.5 in the 40-yard dash. I think that's certainly where I'm trying to go with it. Yeah, my strategy in how I want to do this is. It's kind of going back to the high school days. I sound like Uncle Rico already, which, is something that a lot of people can relate to. But my strategy is to focus on the first 5 to 10 yards, and the rest of it is literally just stamina. You know what I mean? Just try the first 5-10 yards is going to be just coming out of the block, staying low, getting going, and building that momentum and continuing to go.
Right.
That's the only shot in hell that I have to do that. I think the big question, what we haven't talked about here, Chris,
where are we going here?
Is the bench press. What are your, you've kind of shied away from that. My thought process is, how do you feel about that?
Okay. Well, let me start it off with. Are we going how many times we can do 225, right? Like the combine does, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to ask you, how many times do you think you can do it? Because I know how many times I can do it.
Well, how many times can you do it? I'm going to throw it back to you. We're just gonna be throwing this thing around, I mean, okay, I'll keep it here. I think again,
this is interesting. This is going to be really interesting. For your answer, I gotta say this is going to be really interesting because I don't know how many times you can do it. You definitely don't know how many times I can do it. Now it's becoming a pissing contest of like what we're gonna have to hold each other to, like a standard. Are we going for before your answer? Are we trying to beat each other? Or are we trying to beat our mark that we think that we can do?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I would just say I don't actually know how to answer that. I was just going to go until I couldn't. I mean, I'm just trying to make sure I don't look bad on film. That's the big thing. Because if I'm going to run like a 6 flat 40-yard dash or a 6.5 yard dash, and probably
throw that weight around.
Yeah, I got to be able to make up for it somewhere. My realistic goal is sub 5.5 40. And then I would say, what do I think? What do I?
I got to write it down. Sub.
Yeah.
5.5. All right. All right. It's out on paper, bro, and it's on fucking air, bro.
I'd say for bench press. Okay, I'm gonna throw it in there. It's not gonna be the most sexy number you've heard. I got 15 reps, 225.
This is gonna be good. Okay. 15 plus.
Yeah.
This is gonna be interesting. This is gonna be the one where like this. Cause I know I'm faster than you, and I should be. This will be the one, like, I think I can get to 20. I think I can. I haven't done it. It's been 5 years since I've, like, repped out on 225. My goal is 20, personally. I'll be pissed. If you beat me, you beat me. And congrats. But I think my goal is to get 20. At least 20. Good reps, not the half-ass shit. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, again, you've got to be, it's got to be legit. I mean, here's the reality of it, though. We're both competitive guys. I think this is going to be interesting either way you go with it. Somebody that's, you think about running backs in the NFL, I think, put up, 20-plus reps all the time.
DK did 20. I think he did like 27 or 26. So he's like my favorite player in the NFL. So.
Yeah, but you're talking to a deconditioned athlete over here. You know what I mean? So.
Well, yeah, no, you are you're talking about you? Yeah, no. Yeah, no, you are the epitome, bro. I got like you can't see it back here, but like I got like a poster of you, dude, flexing on some kids, dude, shirt off, just third go fucking nose guard what you want in the NFL. That's Christian Hunt, dude. I mean, that guy, you don't even want to go there.
Yeah, I'll just tell you right now, if you know, in a perfect world, you know, yeah, defensive tackle in the NFL probably putting up 30 reps, 225, 20 to 30 reps, and then probably somewhere in the neighborhood of what, you know, about under a 5.40. I mean, again, you know, we're giving ourselves 2 months to do this, so
Okay.
you know, I don't know. I mean, we got to set a date here. You'll
We do, we
definitely,
do, we do, we do here, and that's a big thing to interject you on this, man. I need to know because like I'm at 232 right now, bro. Weight wise, I know I need to get down a little bit if I want to run what I want to run. The only problem is that when I lose some weight, I'm gonna decrease on that bench. That's how that works. So
yeah.
I'm a little worried right now. If I had to do bench press today, I think I could get close to 20. If I lose 15 pounds, then I'm probably pushing that. But I'm gonna try though, Christian. I mean, we said what we said. We're realists. We hold each other accountable. So, what's the bet? I mean, if you win, you hit your goals, or I hit my goals, or I beat you, or you beat me. What we got to do here? I mean, I'm pretty wild. I'll do whatever if I mean, I hold my bets, bro. If I lose, I lose.
I mean, let's make it interesting. I think, you know, we have a big family event that we go to every year in July.
Fucking A, we do.
I think the
a lot of people too. A lot of people there.
You know, I certainly think that what we should do in July would probably just be, you know, at this event that we're going to, this family get together is you know, when everybody gets there, the loser has to announce the winner to everybody else.
Okay. I want to add to that a little bit, though. It is very hot out. It is July.
Yeah.
We do some events on the water.
Uh-huh.
That guy, I think, that loses has to pose. Banana hammock, man thong. I mean, we got to make it interesting, bro. I mean, this is got to go public here. A little bit
maybe
of,
some Daisy Dukes.
Okay. All right. We can kind of figure out the details on that then, bro. I'm gonna make it interesting, dude. I mean, because I truly want to see you, as gay as it sounds, like, and harsh that word. You in a man thong because you lose. You know, that's what I want to see. I mean, you've been running your mouth since this old bet we had the other day at the Super Bowl. So,
bro, there are going to be kids at this event, and there's only so much that they need to be, you know, exposed to. And then I'm just saying, you know, 300 pounds in a man thong does not ever a good sight for anybody.
Well, wait, here's the deal, though. You might be the guy that wins this at 300 pounds, and people are going, bro, you beat the shit out of a dude that was 225 at that point, or 215, whatever I'm at that point.
Yeah, but we've got to, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, we got to add something else in here, Chris, because I mean, the 225, you know, let's say I take the bench, you take the 40-yard dash. You know, that's kind of a wash there. The on-field drills is really just because you said I couldn't do like 10, 15 plays in a row.
I don't think, Christian, I'm telling you, at that level, bro, do you really think you could come in an NFL game in without being gassed, bro? Like, it's a lot, man. It's a lot, dude.
Hold on. You said we were talking USFL.
Okay, but what do we know? We really don't know much about that, though, do we?
That's what I'm saying. Like, from what I know about the USFL, yeah, it's guys that are probably played at that level or played high college football, but they're not guys that are necessarily playing or starting in the NFL. I mean, you might have a couple of fringe guys that kind of make a roster, but, you know, could I play?
These motherfuckers can play, though, bro. These guys can play.
Yeah. But at 300 pounds, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, here's the reality of the situation. If I'm playing defensive tackle and I'm going to take on some, you know, one-on-one blocks, I feel okay. You know, if I get double teamed, yeah, I'm going to go grab grass. I'm going to clog the hole. I'm going to do my job. You know what I mean? I'm going to be like Alexis Texas. I'm going to take one for the team on my back. You know what I mean? Yeah. But that's the kind of selfless player that I really am.
Yeah, I bet.
You know?
I'm going to ask your wife, but yeah, go ahead.
I think, you know, could I play 10 to 15 plays at that level doing that? Yeah, I could. I mean, because here's the other side of it too. I mean, normally, you know, when we're saying this, is it in context that I have a proper offseason lead up into that, where I have like 6 months of training, you know, or 4 or 5 months of training, then we have a training camp, then we go into it? Or is it just right now off of the streets, the Saskatchewan Rough Riders, you know, call me and they're like, hey, We want you to come play defensive tackle.
Well, after their, from what I'm hearing from you, Christian, in the nice 2-minute speech you've given me, they might be calling you after this podcast if they see it. And they'll be like, hey, you know what, man? We need this fucking Christian Hunt guy. We're gonna put him on a fucking nose guard, and he's gonna clog some holes for us. This guy ran a sub 5.5, and this dude put up 225 22 times. I mean, you might find yourself in a fucking starting spot, bro. I know it wasn't your lifelong dream playing quarterback after high school, but you might be that nose guard, bro. You might be that guy.
And we've talked about this too. Jared Lorenzen, is a childhood idol of mine. I don't understand why. Why would it be so wrong to think that maybe I couldn't play quarterback at a high enough level?
Well, for one, you're not left-handed. I think you're right?
Hey, brother, hefty righty.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you this, bro. Jared Lorenzen was my first laugh at a college football game because I couldn't believe that dude was a fucking quarterback. But if you are the modern day Jared Lorenzen, dude, and I hope that you are, call me. I will be your biggest supporter. If you're out there throwing fucking 80-yard dimes, heaving it, you know what I mean? Almost throwing it like a fucking shot put. But if it gets it done, dude, I hope it works, bro. I will be your biggest supporter. Write it down. It's on here on the podcast, bro. But that's nuts, man. I will say the Jared Lorenzen comment, bro. That guy was 3 bills, bro. Yeah,
every bit of it. Every bit of it.
Absolutely.
I'm the white Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah. Do you like look at the mirror at night and say, "Hey, you got this"? I mean, you're the white Jamarcus Russell. I mean, you like convince yourself that you're doing with the glasses on and the hat and like,
fuck yeah. I'm like the Bizarro. You know how Superman had Bizarro? I'm the Bizarro Jamarcus Russell. Because I look at my bank account and I'm like, fuck. He doesn't do that, Yeah.
Fucking A, man. That's good stuff. I don't know how we got a little off course here, but man, I want it. We're gonna do this combine though, right? This is like get back on topic. We're doing it, right?
100%. Let's set the date right now.
Give me a date. Are we doing this together? Like on screen together? We're together doing it, so we're not cheating each other or lying. Or do you? I can make this work. I got people that can fucking clock us and watch us in a rate room, and we can do what we can do.
I think we have to, you know what I mean? Like we can't just do it separately. I mean, I'm gonna have to because I'll have Courtney spotting me if we have to do it separately.
Okay.
And my life will be in danger at that point.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, so it's February. It's what currently almost the end of February, February 18th.
Yep.
So I'm thinking April 23rd is kind of like when I'm thinking. Or sorry, April 22nd. That'd be a Saturday.
That'll be a Saturday. Say that again. April what?
April 22nd.
22nd. All right. This is almost a full month after the NFL Combine, bro. We should be. Is you gonna dial it in? I mean, you're gonna dial it in like weight wise. You're gonna change the way you're looking here. What are you currently 3 what?
306. Listen. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm actually, for reference, by the way, I'm 6'2". 6'3", depending on what liquor store I'm leaving. But I think where my strategy is at with it is I can go one of two ways. I can either dial it in, which I'm trying right now. I'm drinking Budweiser Select, only 55 calories per can.
Impressive.
Or I could go the other way with it. I could try to cultivate the mass that most people desire, and I could try to get up. You know what I mean? Try to get up to 315, and maybe try to go back that way. And really focus on the bench press and just, forget about the 40-yard dash time.
Yeah. And have a heart attack. Yeah, at the same time. Yeah.
I think the way I'll probably go, in all honesty, though, is I'm still trying to cut down from the aesthetic standpoint. So,
Okay. All right.
Realistically, long term, though, and this isn't really what this is about, but long term, yeah, I'm probably shooting for about 240, 250, somewhere in that range.
Okay.
But again, for right now, I mean, I'm thinking by the time in a couple of months rolling around, I'm probably going to be sitting at about probably 280, 290. My whole thing is low and slow on this thing. I'm not trying to lose everything super quick. So, and just praying to God that, muscle memory is a thing. And, somehow I can, pull off a sub 540.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll keep it to that. I'm just giving you some shit, by the way. I got to give you crap every time I fucking talk to you. April 22nd. I can dial it down, dude. I need to lose some weight as well. I am at currently 231 is actually what I'm at. Summertime, I'm usually rounding down 210, pretty lean for the most part. So my goal is to kind of dial it down into that. I want to be able to do my 40. I know that I can run. What was my goal for the? What was my goal again for the 40? By the way,
Did you say sub 5, like 4.9?
Yeah, and I better be able to hit that, man. I ran a 4.48 or 4.49 in college. So I mean, if I can't, this is 20 years ago, but still, I still think I can still run. So, so sub 5, I can roll with that. I would be really happy if I had a 4.7 or some shit. Maybe that's out of range. I don't know.
What we should really try to do here, I don't know if we can do this. I don't know if we have that much clout. I know we certainly know some people that might be able to make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, because April, that's going to be kind of in the sort of slow season for college, right? There's not going to be any spring games going on there, I don't think. Nope, never mind. I literally just looked at Nebraska schedule. I was going to say, I wonder if we could somehow figure out a way to do this at Memorial Stadium.
Oh, dude, Jesus. That would be tough to get on there.
Yeah.
God, that'd be fucking cool, though.
We know some people. I'll put it this way. We know some people.
Man, that might be
we know just enough people that could potentially make this happen. It's kind of like a 60-40, 60% it's not going to happen, but 40% it probably could happen.
Man, if you... that's not a bad idea. So I don't want to... Let's keep that in the back of the old noodle there.
The spring game's on April 22nd, though, so...
If we had to move it, though. If we could get on and move it.
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly going to try it. I mean,
okay,
again, I don't think a week or a couple days is going to make that much of a difference here or there.
No, we're going to be dialed in. You're going to be fucking 250 by that point, right?
At least.
Yeah. No, you're fucking Ronnie Coleman. We're gonna be and then the bench press, bro. That's what I'm a little worried about. Like, if I know if I lose this kind of weight, I'm gonna be dipping a little bit lower, and but I got to beat you. That's my goal, to beat you.
Yeah, but you're a big, strong guy, though. I mean, I think you could.
I've been lifting weights for a lot of years, but man, you're a big dude, bro.
I mean, they call it old
offensive lineman, bro. That's where you're at right now, stat wise.
And if we could make it in Memorial Stadium, I'm not saying, hey, Nebraska would take notice, but I'm just saying, hey, maybe a scout, maybe Matt Rule would probably be walking by.
Do you have years of eligibility to play college?
I got 4.
God damn, mine are burned up, but man, I'll be your biggest supporter.
Yeah, I need an agent. I need to get the NIL money right. As a walk on.
I'll promote the fuck out of you, bro.
Yeah. I mean, listen, imagine 300 some odd pounds behind center trying to run a quarterback sneak. I'm just saying right now, the league's not ready for it.
Man, I thought Jalen Hurts was getting the Super Bowl. Boy, put fucking Jared Lorenzen 2.0 back there. Oh, holy
Jared Lorenzen's cousin, comes to the Big Ten.
Is he from Georgia? He probably is, right? He went to Kentucky.
No, I think he is actually from Kentucky, if I remember right.
Okay. God damn it. I could really promote the fuck out of this. All right. Well, you know what, man? I think we got the dates. If anybody tunes in this, I think we got the dates. This is going to happen, by the way.
Well, this is going to happen. We're going to lock it in, guys. I think this has been a successful first episode here. So, what we're going to do is we're going to look to end the show here, and we're going to end up, coming back to it. I mean, again, we're going to try to put out at least 2 episodes a week. So, we thank everybody for tagging in and watching this. And, like I said, we're excited to kind of grow this channel, and I'm excited to run faster 40-yard dash than Chris.
Love it, man. Hey, I appreciate it. Anybody's tuning in, I appreciate you guys watching this. I know we're a bunch of probably clowns to everybody. So, no, but we love talking college football. So, any questions, hey, we can answer them. We'll give you our best opinion. But like I said, I appreciate it, Christian, for having me on. We're starting this thing. Hopefully this thing grows and we have a good time, man. I like to have a lot of fun. Kind of first episodes, we're kind of trying to go out and just, talk here. And I love to hear other people's thoughts and comment and not rudely, but talk about, college football and the landscape and everything. We can talk more about just Nebraska and Georgia. That's kind of our teams, obviously, but like we can sit here and talk about it. So, like I said, Christian, thank you again, man, for kind of rolling this out and kind of getting this thing started, man. I appreciate it.
Hell yeah, let's get it.
All right, we'll see you, brother.